The city breathed corruption like a living thing, every shadow pregnant with violence, every alley a tomb waiting to be filled. Gotham had seen monsters before, men in masks, clowns with knives, creatures birthed from fear toxin and madness. But it had never seen hellfire. Johnny Blaze felt his skull ignite as the transformation took him, flesh melting away, to reveal bone wrapped in flames that had judged the damned across 1,000 nights. The spirit of vengeance did not ask permission. It did not negotiate. When sin called, it answered. He'd been chasing a demon through a hell portal in Nevada when reality tore like cheap fabric. The spell had intersected with something else. Another hell, another dimension's underworld, a network of damnation that sprawled across cosmic architecture he didn't recognize. The spirit of vengeance had been violently expelled from one reality and hurled into another, landing hard in an alley where three men were beating a fourth to death for the contents of his wallet. They never finished their work. The motorcycle roared to life beneath him, chrome and steel transmuting to bone and hellfire, wheels leaving burning trails on wet pavement. Ghost Rider's chain unfurled with a sound like grinding teeth, each link wreathed in flames that had scorched fallen angels and demons alike. The first attacker turned, saw the flaming skull, and his bladder let go. The second ran. The third pulled a gun. "Guilty," the spirit rasped, voice like stones dragged across broken glass. The pennant's stare took him, eye sockets igniting with hellfire as the man experienced every moment of pain he'd ever inflicted. Every wife beaten, and every child terrorized, every victim left bleeding in alleys just like this one. His screams lasted 3 seconds before his soul burned to ash from the inside out. The body crumpled, smoke rising from empty eye sockets. The second attacker made it 5 steps before the chain caught his ankle, yanked him backward, dragged him across broken glass and garbage. Ghost Rider didn't speak. He simply looked, and the man's sins reflected back at him through flames that had burned since before human language had words for damnation. The third ran faster, smarter, terror giving him speed he'd never known he possessed. It didn't matter. The motorcycle carved through space itself, appearing in his path, and the spirit of vengeance delivered judgment without mercy or hesitation. When the screaming stopped, the 3 piles of ash marked where Gotham's predators had learned that some fires burned souls. The victim, the man they'd been killing, stared up at the burning skull with eyes wide as dinner plates. Ghost Rider's head tilted, examining, reading the soul laid bare in that moment of proximity to divine retribution. The man was innocent, terrified, traumatized, but his soul bore no stains that demanded cleansing. "Go," Ghost Rider commanded. The man went, running like salvation itself chased him. Above, on a rooftop 3 buildings away, something moved in shadows deeper than the night around it. A figure wrapped in a cape that seemed woven from darkness itself watched through white lenses in a cowl designed to strike fear into the criminal heart. Batman had seen the thermal signature from his patrol route. 3 bodies cooling rapidly, and temperatures inconsistent with normal death. He'd heard the screams. Now he saw the source. A flaming skull on a motorcycle, dispensing execution without trial, judge and jury and executioner wrapped in hellfire and bone. Another killer. Another monster. Another threat. Batman's jaw tightened beneath the cowl as his gauntlet activated the Batcomputer's analysis protocols. Readings came back impossible, temperature exceeding anything earthly combustion could produce, energy signatures matching no known element, and underneath it all, something that made his occult warning system scream with urgent red alerts. Magic, or something worse. He tapped his comm. "Oracle, I need..." Static. Pure, howling static that resolved into a voice speaking backwards in Latin, then forward in English, then in languages dead before Rome rose. And the interference cleared as abruptly as it began. "Supernatural event in Crime Alley," he finished, knowing Barbara had lost everything after the word need. Below, Ghost Rider's head swiveled upward, flames dancing in eye sockets that saw through flesh to the soul beneath. For a moment, Batman and the spirit of vengeance locked gazes across the distance. The Dark Knight felt something he'd trained himself never to acknowledge. A flicker of primal, instinctive fear. Not of death. He'd faced death countless times. This was something older. Judgment. Then the motorcycle roared, hellfire scorching reality itself as Ghost Rider tore through Gotham's streets, heading deeper into the city's rotten heart where sin festered like infected wounds. Batman's grapnel fired, the line catching a gargoyle's wing as he swung into pursuit. Whatever this thing was, it had just executed 3 men without trial in his city. That made it his problem. Across Gotham, in a dingy apartment that smelled of cigarette smoke, cheap whiskey, and old books bound in human skin, John Constantine jerked awake from a dream of burning cities and screaming demons. His hand scrambled for the pack of silk cuts on the nightstand, fingers trembling as he lit one with a match that flared too bright, too hot. "Bollocks," he whispered, tasting sulfur on the back of his tongue. Something had just crossed over. Something that made every protection ward he'd carved into his doorframe pulse with warning. The cigarette smoke formed patterns that shouldn't exist in normal air currents. Sigils of damnation, warnings from hell itself. John Constantine had made deals with 3 different demon lords. He conned Lucifer Morningstar himself and sold his soul to multiple buyers just to keep them all from collecting. He knew hell's signatures like other men knew their wives' perfume. This was hell. But it was the wrong hell. A hell from somewhere else. Somewhere that didn't play by the rules he'd spent his entire miserable life learning. He grabbed his coat, the one with protective charms sewn into the lining, and headed for the door. Whatever had just arrived in Gotham, it wasn't here by accident. And if it was connected to hell, it was connected to him. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character. And the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. Hope shines brightest in the darkest night. The spirit of vengeance rode through Gotham's arteries like a fever burning through diseased flesh, and the city's darkest players were about to learn that some judgments couldn't be escaped, bargained with, or survived. Hell had come to Gotham. Not DC's hell, with its demon lords and negotiable damnation. Something older. Something absolute. And somewhere in the space between realities, in the vast network of hell dimensions that spanned the multiverse, ancient powers took notice. The spirit of vengeance had entered a new domain. The question wasn't whether hell's rulers would respond. The question was whether Gotham would survive their answer. The Oblivion Bar materialized in the spaces between spaces, a sanctuary for magic users that existed in no fixed location and every location simultaneously. John Constantine pushed through the door that had appeared in a Gotham back alley, the stench of brimstone following him inside like a unwelcome guest. The bartender, a demon who'd retired from the soul collection business after the Reformation, looked up from polishing a glass with a rag that had witnessed the fall of Babylon. "Constantine, you look like death warmed over, more than usual." "Feel like it too, mate." John slid onto a bar stool, fingers already working a cigarette from the pack. "Something crossed over tonight. Something that's got every hell sensor I've got screaming bloody murder." "Noticed that, did we?" The bartender poured whiskey that glowed faintly purple, distilled from regrets, aged in barrels of broken promises. Half the magical community felt it. Zatanna's been calling around. Dr. Fate's helmet is apparently having some kind of seizure. Even Etrigan went quiet. And you know that rhyming bastard never shuts up. Constantine downed the whiskey in one gulp, felt it burn in ways alcohol shouldn't. "What's the word from downstairs? Any of the demon lords claiming responsibility?" "That's the thing." The bartender leaned close, voice dropping. "They're all denying it. Neron says it's not his. The first of the Fallen's got no idea. Even Trigon's keeping his distance. And that dimensional conqueror doesn't back down from anything. Brilliant. Just brilliant." Constantine lit the cigarette, smoke curling into shapes that whispered warnings in dead languages. "So we've got an unauthorized hell signature strong enough to set off every alarm from here to the House of Mystery, and none of the usual suspects are taking credit." Across Gotham, Batman's pursuit had led him through the Bowery, past shuttered factories and condemned tenements where human predators made their nests. The flaming skull on the motorcycle moved with purpose, not random violence. It was hunting. Oracle's voice crackled through the calm, clearer now that distance had separated them from whatever interference the entity generated. I've got 3 more ash piles in the last 15 minutes. All known criminals. 2 were muscle for the Penguin, 1 was the enforcer for Black Mask. Whatever this thing is, it's targeting Gotham's criminal element specifically. Confirmed kills? Batman's voice was granite. If you can call it that. There's nothing left but ash and the smell of sulfur. Bruce, I'm the thermal readings before each death. These people burned from the inside out. Their souls burned. Batman's mind cataloged the information with cold precision. Supernatural entity, discriminating targeting, execution-style judgments. The pattern suggested either a particularly zealous demon or something that considered itself an instrument of divine justice. Neither option was acceptable. He dropped from a fire escape 3 stories above Crime Alley, cape spreading like wings as he descended. The motorcycle had stopped at the mouth of the alley where, 27 years ago, Thomas and Martha Wayne had died. Ghost Rider sat motionless, flames dimmed but still dancing across skeletal features, staring at the spot where blood had once stained concrete. "You're in my city," Batman said, a voice modulated to its most threatening register, the one that made hardened criminals reconsider their life choices. Executing criminals without trial. Ghost Rider's head turned slowly, eye sockets flaring brighter. When the spirit spoke, it was with the weight of eons behind each word. This place screams with sin. Every shadow hides predators. Every street runs red with innocent blood. You allow this. You protect monsters. I protect everyone, including those monsters, because I don't decide who lives and dies. You should. The chain rattled, links scraping against bone and steel. How many has the laughing one killed? The one with the white face and the smile? Batman's jaw clenched. The Joker is guilty. His soul writhes with the screams of thousands. Children, mothers, fathers, an entire city traumatized by his existence. Yet he lives. You could end him. One moment, save countless future victims. But you won't. You call it justice. I call it cowardice. The words hit like physical blows, striking at the wound Batman had carried since Jason Todd's death. Since every victim the Joker had claimed while Batman remained committed to his one unbreakable rule. If I kill him, I become him. I cross a line I can never uncross. Ghost Rider's laughter was the sound of damned souls shrieking. You already crossed it the moment you let him live. Every death after that first time you captured him and let him breathe, those deaths are on your hands. Your code is vanity wrapped in fear. You're afraid of what you'd become, so you let monsters live and innocents die. Batman's hand moved to his belt, our fingers finding the small cylindrical device he'd requisitioned from Zatanna months ago, a magical binding circle compressed into a deployable grenade. I'm not debating moral philosophy with a serial killer. Serial killer? The flames roared higher, hellfire scorching the air itself. I am judgment. I am the consequence your justice denies. I am what happens when the guilty escape punishment through loopholes and compromises and the cowardice of men who dress as bats and pretend they're making a difference. The binding grenade flew. Ghost Rider's chain shot forward, intercepting it mid-flight, wrapping around the device and hurling it skyward, where it detonated in a burst of golden light that carved sacred geometry into the air. The binding circle expanded, descended, and passed through Ghost Rider as if he weren't there. So, Zatanna's magic, the spirit said. DC magic. I am bound by different laws, judged by different powers. Your magic is children playing with matches in a universe that doesn't understand fire. He reached out, and Batman felt something cold pierce through Kevlar, through flesh, through the very concept of physical protection. Ghost Rider wasn't touching his body. He was touching his soul. Images flooded Batman's mind. Every failure, every victim he couldn't save, every moment he'd arrived too late, found the bodies, added names to the endless memorial he kept in the cave's darkest corner. Jason Todd's broken body. Barbara Gordon's spine shattered by the Joker's bullet. The countless civilians caught in crossfire because Batman wouldn't cross that final line. Guilty, Ghost Rider whispered. The penance stare began to take hold. a flames building behind Batman's eyes as the weight of his failures threatened to consume him from within. Every choice not to kill, every monster allowed to live and kill again, reflected back at him through the lens of absolute judgment. Then a voice cut through the spiritual assault like a blade through smoke. Oi, flaming skullhead. How about you piss off before I send you back to whatever discount hell you crawled out of? John Constantine stood at the alley's entrance, coat billowing, despite the absence of wind, cigarette dangling from lips curved in a smirk that had survived encounters with Lucifer himself. His hands wove patterns in the air, each gesture leaving trails of light that spelled out words in languages that predated human civilization. Ghost Rider released Batman, who stumbled back against the alley wall, gasping for air, mind still reeling from the psychic assault. The spirit turned its full attention to Constantine, and for the first time, something like recognition flickered in those burning eye sockets. Hellblazer, Ghost Rider said. I can smell hell on you. Multiple hells. You've sold your soul to demons, made deals with darkness, bargained with evil. Constantine's smirk widened. Guilty on all counts, mate. I'm also the bloke who's about to explain to you how things work in this particular reality. Before you go burning souls that might be under existing demonic contracts, you're causing a right mess with the paperwork. The flames roared higher. Demons have no claim that supersedes judgment. See, that's where you're wrong. Constantine took a long drag on his cigarette, sees smoke forming a protective barrier between himself and the spirit. In my hell, in DC's hells, plural because we're cosmically complicated like that, contracts are absolute. You burn a soul that's already been promised to Neron, you're not just executing a criminal, you're stealing from hell. And hell, in this universe, takes theft very seriously. Batman straightened, mind racing through the new variables. Constantine's appearance wasn't coincidence. The man had a supernatural early warning system built from decades of dancing on Hell's Edge. If he was here, it meant this entity represented a threat beyond simple supernatural violence. You're protecting the guilty, Ghost Rider accused. I'm preventing an interdimensional incident that could make the last crisis look like a bloody tea party, Constantine shot back. You're not from here, and I can smell it. Different brimstone, different metaphysical architecture. You're Marvel's Ghost Rider, aren't you? Spirit of vengeance from a universe with one hell, simple rules, clear moral lines. The flames dimmed slightly. Surprise or perhaps recognition that Constantine knew more than he should. Welcome to DC, mate. We've got multiple hells, demon lords who trade in souls like currency, and a magical ecosystem you're disrupting just by existing. Every soul you burn could be part of a contract chain that keeps reality stable. You might think you're delivering justice. What you're actually doing is potentially collapsing the metaphysical infrastructure of this entire dimension. Batman filed that information away, mind already working on contingencies. What if Constantine was telling the truth, and the bastard was usually reliable when reality itself was at stake? Then this wasn't just a supernatural threat. It was a cosmic one. Ghost Rider's motorcycle rumbled, flames flickering with what might have been uncertainty. The guilty must be punished. Oh, they will be, Constantine assured him. DC's hells have excellent collection rates, but we do it according to established contracts, cosmic law, and a very delicate balance that keeps demons, angels, and everything in between from tearing reality apart. You're the bull in the china shop, and the china is made of damned souls and broken dreams. For a long moment, Ghost Rider simply stared at Constantine through flames that had judged the wicked across dimensions. Then, you lie. You've always lied. It's what you do. Hellblazer, con man, saw a damned soul who refuses to stay damned. True on all counts, Constantine agreed cheerfully. But I'm also the only reason you're not about to have every demon lord in DC's pantheon trying to either bind you, banish you, or recruit you for their armies. Neron alone would love to get his hands on a spirit of vengeance with your particular skill set. Batman saw the truth in Constantine's words reflected in the entity's body language, the way the flames flickered with genuine concern at the mention of Neron. This thing, whatever it was, recognized danger when it was named properly. So here's what's going to happen, Constantine continued, voice taking on the tone he used when negotiating with entities that could erase him from existence. You're going to come with me and the bat here. We're going to sort out where you came from, is why you're here, and how to either send you home or integrate you into DC's magical hierarchy without causing a cosmic clusterfuck. In exchange, I'll make sure the Demon Lords know you're under my protection, temporarily, until we figure this mess out. I don't need protection. No, Batman said, finding his voice again, mind clear of the penance stare's after effects. But Gotham does. From you. Ghost Rider's gaze swiveled back to the dark night. The spirit of vengeance saw the determination in that cowled face, the absolute certainty that this mortal in a cape would stand against hellfire itself to protect his city, even the guilty parts of it. Your city is damned, Ghost Rider said. I know, Batman replied, but it's still mine. The House of Mystery existed in the spaces where reality forgot to enforce its own rules. On one moment it was a Victorian manor in New Orleans, the next a brutalist tower in Prague, always shifting, always watching. Tonight it had manifested in Gotham's East End, tucked between a pawn shop and a building that had been condemned since the earthquake. Constantine pushed open the front door without knocking. The house knew him, had known him since before he'd ruined his first soul, and gestured Ghost Rider inside. Welcome to the magical community's headquarters. Try not to burn anything. The house gets tetchy when guests scorch the furniture. Batman followed, cowl still up, every muscle coiled for action. The interior defied physics. Staircases led nowhere and everywhere. Doors opened onto rooms that couldn't possibly fit within the exterior dimensions. And the wallpaper whispered secrets in languages that made his translation software crash. Ghost Rider's flames dimmed as he crossed the threshold, the hellfire banking to a low burn that still cast dancing shadows across walls lined with books bound in materials Batman didn't want to identify. The motorcycle had vanished the moment its rider dismounted, dissolving into embers that faded without leaving scorch marks. Fascinating, a woman's voice said from the top of a staircase that hadn't been there a moment ago. The house usually incinerates unauthorized demonic presences. It must recognize you're something different. Zatanna Zatara descended the stairs with the grace of a stage performer, top hat perched at a jaunty angle, fishnets and tails somehow managing to look both theatrical and practical. In her eyes, wise beyond their years, having seen magic's true face, assessed Ghost Rider with professional curiosity. Zatanna, Batman acknowledged. Batman. John. She reached the bottom of the stairs, fingers already weaving subtle patterns that traced Ghost Rider's magical signature. And our guest from, oh my, you're not from here at all, are you? Your hell signature is all wrong. Different architecture, different rules, different... She trailed off, eyes widening. You're from outside the multiverse, not the dark multiverse, not Earth 2 or 3 or any of the numbered alternates. You're from a completely different comic. She caught herself, smiling apologetically. A completely different reality structure. The spirit of vengeance recognizes no borders, Ghost Rider said, voice like gravel dragged through fire. Where sin exists, a judgment follows. Right, about that. Constantine lit another cigarette, using the brief flare to buy thinking time. The judgments you've been dispensing? 3 of those souls were under contract to the First of the Fallen. 2 belonged to Neron. 1 was technically property of a minor demon lord named Abnegazar, who's going to be absolutely insufferable about this. Demons have no claim on... in your universe, maybe? Zatanna's hands moved, and the air between them shimmered into a 3-dimensional map of cosmic architecture that made Batman's head hurt. But here, souls are currency. They're traded, bartered, used as collateral for deals that keep worse things at bay. That enforcer you burned? Black Mask had promised his soul to Neron in exchange for protection from Batman. By destroying that soul, you've invalidated the contract. And Neron is now legally entitled to collect from Black Mask directly, which means he'll escalate his operations to force Black Mask into a corner, which means more violence, more death, more souls damned. Ghost Rider's flames flickered, the spiritual equivalent of a frown. The guilty should not be shielded by hell's bureaucracy. Couldn't agree more, mate, Constantine said, exhaling smoke that formed intricate wards against casual listening. But Hell's bureaucracy is the only thing keeping demons from just walking into our world and taking whatever they want. It's a shit system built on suffering and damnation, but it's the shit system we've got. You start ignoring it, the whole house of cards collapses. A door slammed open on the third floor, or possibly the basement, on spatial relationships being fluid in the house of mystery, and heavy footsteps thundered down a corridor that wound through impossible angles. "Gone, gone, oh form of man!" A voice chanted in sing-song cadence that dripped with malice and dark humor. "Rise, the demon Etrigan!" The demon that rounded the corner was yellow-skinned, red-eyed, and wreathed in sulphurous smoke. Etrigan's grin showed teeth that had torn through angels and heroes alike, and his rhyming speech pattern was less affectation than cosmic compulsion. "A rider wreathed in flame I see. From distant hell he comes to me. But DC's darkness runs more deep, where demon lords their contracts keep." Ghost Rider's chain materialized in his hand, hellfire racing along its length. Another demon, more corruption wearing flesh. "Easy, Flameskull." Constantine stepped between them, hands raised. "Etrigan's complicated. He's bound to a human host, Jason Blood, decent bloke most of the time, and he's technically on our side, sometimes, when it suits him." "I judge the heart, not allegiance," Ghost Rider said. "This creature's soul is stained with centuries of blood. 10,000 souls I've torn and rent, through ages dark my rage I've spent. But bound to blood, I serve the light, though darkness calls me every night." Etrigan's grin widened, showing more teeth than any mouth should hold. The demon stepped closer, and the temperature in the house of mystery dropped 10 degrees. "You judge me, Rider. Have a care, for I've judged angels in despair. Your vengeance burns, but mine runs cold. A demon's wrath 10,000 years old." Batman's hand moved to his belt, his fingers finding the containment protocols for Etrigan that Constantine had provided months ago. The two demons, if Ghost Rider qualified as such, were seconds from combat that would tear the House of Mystery apart. Zatanna's hands wove frantically. "Erapes met!" The spell hit both demons like a wall of frozen light, forcing them apart, creating a barrier of crystallized space-time that neither hellfire nor demonic strength could immediately penetrate. "Enough!" Her voice carried the authority of the Homo Magi, one of Earth's most powerful magic bloodlines. "Etrigan, stand down. Ghost Rider, we're not your enemies, and both of you remember that Batman is standing right there with enough magic disruption tech to make all our lives miserable." The demons stared at each other through Zatanna's barrier. The Ghost Rider's flames burned with the purity of absolute judgment. Etrigan's eyes gleamed with the cunning of eons spent surviving Hell's politics. Then, slowly, Etrigan's posture relaxed. "The lady speaks with wisdom true. This rider's quarrel is not with you. But know this, spirit from afar, DC's hell is stranger than you are." The barrier dissolved. Ghost Rider's chain retracted, but the flames continued burning low and dangerous. "You speak in riddles and rhymes, more proof of demonic corruption." "I speak in verse because I must, a curse as old as demon's lust. But truth rings clear in every word, the strangest truths you've ever heard." Constantine stubbed out his cigarette, immediately lighting another. "What Etrigan's trying to say, and bloody hell I never thought I'd be translating for a demon, is that you're out of your depth. A Marvel's hell is a monarchy with one ruler and clear rules. DC's got multiple hells, each with different demon lords, different jurisdictions, different metaphysical laws. Lucifer Morningstar abandoned his hell and gave the keys to two angels who don't even want the job. The first of the fallen runs another hell that's all Old Testament fire and brimstone. Neron's hell is for deal-makers and damned souls who signed contracts. Trigon's realm is a dimensional nightmare that devours worlds. And somewhere in the gaps between," Zatanna added quietly, "there are hells we don't even have names for. Hells that predate human consciousness. Hells that will exist after the last star dies." Batman filed away every word, mind-constructing maps of cosmic hierarchies he'd need to update in the Bat computer. The point being that Ghost Rider's presence is disrupting an already unstable system. "Precisely." Constantine pointed at Ghost Rider with his cigarette. "You're an unauthorized player in a game with rules you don't understand, burning souls that might be linchpins holding back apocalypses. We need to either send you home or integrate you into the system before you accidentally trigger a hell war. Ghost Rider was silent for a long moment, flames dancing in eye sockets that had seen damnation across realities. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that made the House of Mystery's walls groan. I was drawn here through a convergence, a spell intersecting with this dimension's hell structure. The spirit of vengeance does not travel randomly. Where there was purpose in my arrival. Purpose? Zatanna's expression shifted from annoyed to intrigued. What kind of purpose? Someone called. Someone screamed through the barriers between worlds. A soul in such agony, such desperate need for justice, that the cry pierced reality itself. Batman's mind raced. A scream loud enough to breach dimensions would require either unimaginable suffering or magical amplification beyond anything he'd encountered. Constantine's face had gone pale. Bloody hell. You're saying someone summoned you? Deliberately? Not summoned. Called. The difference matters. Ghost Rider turned those burning eye sockets toward Batman. The scream came from this city. From Gotham. From a place where justice has failed so completely, so absolutely, or that a soul cried out for vengeance beyond mortal comprehension. Zatanna's hands moved, tracing detection spells through the air. I'm not picking up any summoning residue. No ritual circles, no sacrifice markers, no... She froze. Wait. There was something. 3 nights ago. A spike in dimensional instability centered in Gotham. I thought it was just another scarecrow fear toxin experiment, but what if it wasn't? Batman finished, mind already compiling lists of recent crimes, recent victims, recent atrocities, even by Gotham standards. A soul screamed, Ghost Rider repeated. Screamed loud enough to pierce the walls between realities. Screamed for vengeance that mortal justice could never provide. That scream is what pulled me here. That scream is why the spirit of vengeance walks in your world. Etrigan's rhyming voice took on a darker tone. A scream to pierce the cosmic veil, to summon vengeance's fiery tail. What horror born in Gotham's night could call forth hell's avenging light? Constantine and Zatanna exchanged glances that Batman recognized. The look magic users shared when they'd just realized they were dealing with something far larger than anticipated. We need to find that soul, Zatanna said. If someone's pain was powerful enough to breach dimensions and call the spirit of vengeance across realities, they're either a cosmic-level threat or a victim of something so terrible that reality itself bent to answer their cry for justice, Batman finished grimly. Ghost Rider's flames surged higher. Find them. Find the soul that called. That is why I'm here. That is the judgment I came to deliver. Constantine took a long drag on his cigarette, held it, exhaled slowly. Right. So we're not just dealing with an interdimensional incident and potential hell war. We're dealing with someone, or something, in Gotham whose suffering summoned a spirit of vengeance from another bloody universe. He looked at Batman. I don't suppose your detective skills include tracking metaphysical screams through dimensional barriers? Batman's jaw tightened. I'll find them. Whatever happened, whoever's responsible, I'll find them. And when you do, Ghost Rider's voice carried the weight of inevitability. When you find the one whose crime was so heinous it echoed across realities, then we'll deal with it, Batman said. My way. Justice, not vengeance. Your way has already failed, Ghost Rider said quietly. That's why I'm here. The House of Mystery shuddered as if in agreement, walls whispering secrets in dead languages, and somewhere in Gotham's endless night, a soul continued screaming for justice that mortals could never deliver. The Batcave's computers hummed with processing power that would make most nations jealous, screens cascading data faster than human eyes could track. But Batman's eyes weren't entirely human anymore. Decades of training had pushed perception beyond biological limits, allowing him to parse information streams that would overwhelm ordinary minds. Ghost Rider stood beside the Batcomputer's main terminal, flames casting dancing shadows across stalactites that had witnessed the birth of Gotham's greatest detective. And the spirit had followed Batman here after Constantine promised to monitor Hell's political situation, and Zatanna began researching dimensional breach patterns. 3 nights ago, Batman said, fingers flying across holographic interfaces. Zatanna detected dimensional instability. I'm cross-referencing every crime, every incident, every 911 call in Gotham during that 12-hour window. The screens filled with data. Murders, assaults, robberies, domestic violence, human trafficking, drug overdoses, the usual symphony of Gotham's suffering. Batman had long ago learned to compartmentalize the horror, to view each crime as a puzzle to be solved rather than a tragedy to be mourned. The mourning came later, in private, when the cowl came off and Bruce Wayne allowed himself to feel the weight. In Ghost Rider's eye sockets flared brighter as he scanned the data. So much sin, so much suffering. How do you choose? How do you decide which victims matter? They all matter, Batman said. I can't save everyone, but I can try. Trying is not enough. Action is required. Judgment is required. Judgment without trial is execution. Batman pulled up a three-dimensional crime map of Gotham, each incident marked by glowing points of light. That's murder, not justice. Semantics. The guilty die either way. The difference is that my way, they die quickly and face eternal consequences for their sins. Your way, they get lawyers and appeals and often walk free to kill again. Batman's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. The argument was circular, and he'd had variations of it with Jason Todd, with Damian, while with every person who'd ever questioned his one unbreakable rule. There, Ghost Rider pointed at a cluster of incidents in Gotham's Bowery district. That location. Multiple reports. Something happened there that night. Batman zoomed in, and his blood ran cold. The Gotham Children's Hospital Charity Gala. 3 nights ago, a fundraiser for the pediatric cancer ward attended by Gotham's elite and their families. The event had ended in tragedy when a fire broke out in the kitchen. Official reports listed 7 dead, 23 injured, most of them children. But Batman's own investigation, the one he'd conducted after the GCPD closed the case as accidental, had revealed something far worse. It wasn't an accident, he said quietly, pulling up his private files. Files that Gordon didn't have clearance to see. Files that contained evidence too damning, too monstrous to make public without triggering citywide panic. Ghost Rider leaned closer, flames brightening as he read. Arson. Deliberate. The exits were chained from the outside. The sprinkler system sabotaged. This was murder. Mass murder of children. 7 confirmed dead. Batman's voice was flat, emotionless. The only way he could discuss atrocities like this without letting rage consume him. 12-year-old girl with leukemia, 8-year-old boy recovering from brain surgery, a 6-year-old whose parents were serving food at the event, 4 others, all under 10, and 3 volunteer firefighters who died trying to reach them. Who? Ghost Rider's single word wasn't a question, it was a demand. Batman pulled up a photo. Male, mid-40s, sharp suit, sharper smile. Victor Sosh, on no relation to the serial killer. Real estate developer with political connections stretching all the way to Washington. The hospital had been refusing to sell the land for his luxury development project. Zaz hired professionals to make it look like an accident. Paid off the fire inspector. Paid off the lead detective. Made sure the evidence disappeared before it could be processed properly. I've been building a case but without physical evidence and with every witness either paid off or intimidated. He walks free, Ghost Rider finished, while 7 children lie in graves. I'm working on it. I'll find a way to— No. The spirit's flames roared higher, hellfire scorching the air itself. This is why I'm here. This is the scream that pierced dimensions. I'm one of those children, the 12-year-old girl. Batman's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up her file. Sarah Jennings. Fought leukemia for 3 years. Had been in remission for 6 months. Her parents had brought her to the gala to celebrate. She'd died of smoke inhalation while trapped in a bathroom, hands bloody from trying to claw through a locked door. She screamed, Ghost Rider said, voice carrying the weight of cosmic certainty. Not just with her voice, with her soul. She screamed for justice, for vengeance, for someone to punish the monster who'd murdered her and 6 other innocents for money and land. That scream was so pure, so absolute, that it pierced the walls between realities and called the spirit of vengeance across dimensions. Batman stared at the photo. Sarah Jennings smiling at her hospital bed, high-balled from chemotherapy but eyes bright with hope. A fighter who'd survived cancer only to be murdered by a man whose only crime in the eyes of the law was successful real estate development. "I'll get him," Batman said. "It will take time, but I'll find the evidence. I'll build a case that his lawyers can't dismantle. He's guilty." Ghost Rider turned toward the exit. "The spirit knows. Her scream called me here to deliver judgment he'll never face in your courts." "No." Batman moved to block the path, cape spreading wide. "You're not killing him." "I'm not killing him. I'm sending him to hell to face eternal consequences for his actions. There's a difference. Not in my city." Ghost Rider's head tilted, eye sockets blazing. "Your city. You keep saying that. As if Gotham belongs to you. As if your rules supersede cosmic law. Tell me, Dark Knight, where were you when Sarah Jennings was burning to death? Where was your justice when she clawed her fingers bloody trying to escape?" The words hit like physical blows, striking at the wound Batman carried for every victim he couldn't save. He'd been in the Narrows that night, stopping a scarecrow gas attack. He'd saved 47 people, but he hadn't saved Sarah Jennings. "I can't be everywhere," he said, voice rough. "No, but I can be where I'm needed, where the spirit is called." Victor Sazage murdered 7 innocents, 6 of them children, for profit. He walks free, sleeps in a penthouse, dines at 5-star restaurants while Sarah Jennings rots in a grave. Your justice has failed her. The spirit of vengeance will not. If you kill him, you prove that might makes right, or that whoever has the most power gets to decide who lives and dies. You become the very thing you claim to judge. Ghost Rider laughed, and the sound was damned souls screaming. "I am not making moral choices based on power. I am delivering consequences that mortal law cannot. Sash is guilty. The evidence you've collected proves it. The only reason he walks free is because your system values money and connections over truth. I remove those obstacles. By becoming judge, jury, and executioner. By circumventing every protection society has built to prevent tyranny." Those protections? Ghost Rider gestured at the screens showing Gotham's crime statistics, the endless parade of violence and suffering. "They protect the guilty more than the innocent. How many children must die before you admit your system is broken?" Batman had no answer, because Ghost Rider was right about one thing: the system was broken. He'd known it since he was 8 years old, watching his parents' blood pool on concrete while a broken city did nothing. That's why he'd become Batman, to fix what the system couldn't. But becoming an executioner? That was the line he'd never cross. The moment he killed even someone like Saz, he'd become something else, something darker, something Gotham would fear instead of trust. "I understand your frustration," he said carefully. "I feel it every day. Every time a monster walks free on technicalities. Every time a corrupt official takes a bribe. Every time the guilty escape consequences. But the moment we start deciding who deserves to live or die based on our personal judgment, we stop being heroes. We become tyrants. Then perhaps tyranny is what this world needs." Ghost Rider's flames burned cold now, frigid hellfire that froze rather than burned. Perhaps a benevolent dictator who actually punishes the guilty would be better than a broken democracy that protects them. Batman recognized those words. He'd heard variations from Ra's al Ghul, from Talia, from every well-intentioned monster who thought the ends justified the means. He'd even heard them from his own mind during the darkest hours when the weight of Gotham's suffering threatened to crush his last shred of faith in humanity. "That's the injustice timeline," he said quietly. "Another Earth where Superman decided to stop holding back, where he decided to enforce peace through power. It started with killing the Joker, justified, most would say, after what the Joker did to Lois and their unborn child. But it didn't stop there. It never stops. Superman became a tyrant. Batman had to lead a rebellion against him. Millions died. That's what happens when heroes decide they know better than the law." Ghost Rider was silent, flames flickering with what might have been uncertainty. "You speak of other Earths, other timelines. This universe has seen versions of itself where heroes fell, where good intentions paved roads to hell. your hell or any of the others. I won't become one of those fallen heroes, and I won't let you start Gotham down that path. Even if it means Sarah Jennings never receives justice, I will get her justice, the right way, through evidence and investigation and time. Ghost Rider's roar shook the Batcave, sending bats scattering from their roosts. Or how much time? How many more children will Sauce kill while you build your perfect case? He's already planning another fire, another property he wants, another obstacle to remove. Batman's blood froze. How do you know that? The spirit sees guilt, past, present, and future. Sauce is planning to burn down a homeless shelter next week. 37 people live there, including 8 children. He's already hired the same professionals, already bribed the same officials. The cycle continues because you refuse to end it. Then I'll stop him before next week. I'll warn the shelter, increase patrols, catch him in the act. And if you fail, if he succeeds and more children die, will you still defend your code while their ashes cool? The question hung in the air, like a guillotine blade. Batman had built his entire identity on that code, yes, on the principle that he didn't kill. That principle separated him from the monsters he fought. It was the foundation of everything he was. But what if Ghost Rider was right? What if his code was killing people? What if every monster he let live went on to claim more victims? Jason Todd had asked him the same question years ago, standing in Crime Alley with a gun pointed at the Joker's head. Batman had stopped Jason then. The Joker had killed 43 more people since that night. Batman stopped, the word feeling foreign in his mouth. He never hesitated, never doubted. But Ghost Rider had found the crack in his armor, the wound that never healed. You can't save everyone, Detective. Ghost Rider's voice softened, becoming almost human. But you can save the next victims. You can end Sauce before he kills again. All you have to do is step aside. Let the spirit deliver the judgment your courts cannot. Batman stood at a crossroads, cape hanging heavy on his shoulders, the weight of Gotham's darkness pressing down on him. Every instinct screamed to stop Ghost Rider. But for the first time in his career, doubt whispered. What if the spirit was right? The decision was made before Batman fully registered making it. His hand moved to his utility belt, fingers finding the explosive batarang, the one he reserved for situations requiring maximum force. Not to kill, but to incapacitate, to buy time, to stop something unstoppable from making an irreversible choice. I can't let you do this, he said. Ghost Rider's flames dimmed, and for a moment, the spirit seemed almost sad. Then you choose his future victims over justice for his past ones. That is your right, Detective, but their blood will stain your hands as surely as his. Their blood will be on Sauce's hands, where it belongs. I'll stop him my way. Your way takes too long. People die while you investigate. People die either way. At least my way doesn't make me a murderer. The batarang flew. Ghost Rider's chain intercepted it mid-flight, wrapping around the explosive device and absorbing the detonation in a cocoon of hellfire that burned hotter than thermite. The Batcave's sensors screamed warnings as temperature spikes threatened to melt equipment. I did not come here to fight you, Ghost Rider said, chain retracting. You are not the enemy. You are simply ineffective. Batman's jaw clenched. Get out of my cave. Gladly. Ghost Rider turned toward the exit, flames building with renewed purpose. Yoas, I have a judgment to deliver. He was gone before Batman could respond, hellfire consuming his form and leaving only the acrid smell of brimstone. The spirit didn't use doors or traditional exits. He simply burned through space itself, reappearing wherever sin called him. Batman's fingers flew across the Bat computer, pulling up Victor Zsa's current location. The penthouse apartment in the Diamond District. 37th floor. Security detail of 12 armed guards. Surveillance system that would make most government agencies jealous. None of it would stop Ghost Rider. Batman activated every comm system he had. Oracle, I need you to... Already tracking him, Barbara Gordon's voice came through, strained with effort. He's leaving some kind of thermal signature that's frying my sensors. Currently heading northwest at speeds that shouldn't be possible for a motorcycle. Bruce, what the hell is that thing? Vengeance incarnate, Batman said grimly, already moving toward the Batmobile. Literal, absolute cosmic vengeance. And it's about to execute a guilty man who deserves prison, not hellfire. Do you need backup? Batman considered. Justice League Dark was already aware of Ghost Rider. Bringing in more heroes would just complicate matters, especially if the Spirit decided to judge them too. Superman would be vulnerable, his soul carried guilt. So did Diana's, from the times she'd killed in battle. Hal Jordan had been Parallax. The Flash had broken time. Every hero had sins that the penance stare could exploit. No, I handle this alone. I just keep tracking him and clear the streets along his route. Bruce? Oracle's voice carried concern that went beyond professional. If this thing is what you say it is, how do you stop divine judgment? The same way I stop everything else, carefully. The Batmobile screamed out of the cave, turbine engine pushing beyond safety limits. Batman had minutes at most before Ghost Rider reached Zas's penthouse. Minutes to figure out how to stop an entity that had shrugged off magical bindings, survived explosive force, and demonstrated the ability to burn souls. His mind raced through options. Constantine's banishment spells had failed. Zatanna's barriers had been temporary at best. Traditional weapons were useless against something that existed partially outside physical reality. He needed leverage. He needed information Ghost Rider couldn't ignore. The comm crackled with a new voice. John Constantine, sounding more sober than Batman had ever heard him. Bat, you there? Got some intel you're not going to like? Talk. Been doing research on our flaming friend. Contacted some sources in the metaphysical community. Turns out the spirit of vengeance isn't just a demon or an angel. It's older than both. It's a primordial force, one of the first things that existed when the concept of morality was born. It predates gods. It predates creation myths. It's the universe's answer to the question, what happens to those who sin? Batman processed that while weaving through Gotham traffic at illegal speeds. Meaning what? It can't be stopped? Meaning it can't be killed, banished, or bound by normal means. But here's the thing. It's also bound by cosmic law. It can only judge the truly guilty. Sarah Jennings's scream called it here because her case was clear-cut. Innocent child murdered by guilty adult for profit. Pure, unambiguous sin. The spirit responds to that kind of moral clarity. So I need to prove Zaz isn't guilty? No, you get. Zaz is guilty as hell, literally. You need to prove there's another way to deliver justice. The spirit of vengeance exists because sometimes mortal systems fail. But if you can show that your system works, that Zaz will face consequences without requiring hellfire, the spirit might back down. It's not bloodthirsty. It's not evil. It's just absolute. Batman's mind crystallized around a plan. I need you to contact Gordon. Tell him to move on Zaz immediately. Every piece of evidence I've gathered, on every witness I've protected, every bribe I've documented. Put it all on his desk. Tell him to arrest Zaz tonight. That'll burn your investigation. You've spent weeks building that case quietly. Going public now means Zaz's lawyers will have time to, I know what it means, do it anyway. Constantine was silent for a moment. You're betting Gotham's justice system against a cosmic force of vengeance. That's a losing bet, mate. Maybe, but it's the only one I've got. The Batmobile screeched around a corner, cutting off a taxi whose driver responded with creative profanity. Batman ignored it, focused entirely on the GPS tracking Ghost Rider's thermal signature. The Spirit was 3 blocks from Zaz's building. 2 blocks. 1. Batman wouldn't make it in time. Then Oracle's voice cut through. Bruce, our GCPD just got an anonymous tip about Zaz. They're mobilizing units now. Someone sent them everything. Every document, every photo, every witness statement. It's all there. Even the stuff that was supposed to be confidential. Batman's hands tightened on the wheel. Constantine worked fast. Jim Gordon himself is leading the raid, Oracle continued. He looks angry, really angry. Whatever evidence he saw, it got through to him. Gordon's task force would arrive in approximately 4 minutes. Ghost Rider in less than 1. Batman pushed the Batmobile harder, turbines screaming protest, the vehicle barely maintaining control as it carved through Gotham's streets. He arrived at the Diamond District with 30 seconds to spare. Ghost Rider stood before the building's entrance, motorcycle idling, flames building to a crescendo, and the spirit's head tilted upward, tracking Sash through 37 floors of steel and concrete as if the materials didn't exist. "He's on the phone," Ghost Rider said without looking at Batman. "Calling his lawyer. He knows the police are coming. His security detail is preparing to delay them. He'll escape. Again." Batman exited the Batmobile, cape billowing as he positioned himself between Ghost Rider and the building. Gordon won't let him escape. Not this time. Gordon is one honest cop in a corrupt system. Zaz has judges in his pocket. He'll make bail within hours. He'll flee the country before trial. Justice will not be served. Then I'll bring him back. I'll hunt him to the ends of the earth if necessary. But you're not killing him. Ghost Rider's flames roared higher, hellfire scorching the pavement, on melting asphalt into bubbling tar. "Why do you protect the guilty? What has this monster done to earn your mercy?" "Nothing. Zaz deserves prison. He deserves to lose everything. But he doesn't deserve to be executed without trial. That's not justice. That's revenge. And revenge is what creates more monsters, not fewer. Revenge is what prevents future crimes. Zaz will never burn another building if his soul is burning in hell. And what about the next Zaz? The next monster who thinks he can get away with murder? Do you hunt them all? Do you stay in this dimension forever, judging every sinner in every city? Because Gotham alone would take you centuries." Ghost Rider paused, flames flickering with uncertainty. "I was called here for Sarah Jennings, for her justice." "Then give her justice. Let Zaz face trial. Let him be convicted. Let him spend the rest of his life in prison, knowing everyone sees him for the child-murdering coward he is. Let Sarah's parents see him judged by their peers, not executed in the night by a flaming demon. Which do you think honors her memory more? Justice delayed is justice denied. Justice rushed is justice corrupted." They stood in the street, dark night and spirit of vengeance, while sirens wailed in the distance and Gotham held its breath. Above them, Victor Sash paced his penthouse, watching police cars converge on his building, calculating odds and contingencies. Then Ghost Rider spoke, voice quiet beneath the flames. "You know I'm right. You know your system is broken. You know Sash might walk free. Yet you still defend it. Why?" Batman considered the question. Why did he keep faith in a system he knew was flawed? Yeah, why did he believe in justice when vengeance was so much simpler? "Because the alternative is you," he said finally. "The alternative is someone deciding who deserves to live based on their personal judgment. And once that starts, it never stops. Today it's Sash. Guilty, obviously, no question. Tomorrow it's someone whose crime is less clear. Next week it's someone who sinned in ways that don't deserve death. Where's the line? Who decides? You? Me? We're not gods, despite what our power might suggest. The spirit of vengeance is not personal judgment. It is cosmic law. Cosmic law that burned 3 petty criminals to ash in Crime Alley. Were they guilty? Yes. Did they deserve execution for attempted robbery? You tell me." Ghost Rider's flames dimmed slightly. They had killed before, or their souls carried blood. How many people had they killed? Silence. "How many?" Batman pressed. "1 each? 2? 10? Does the number matter? At what point does past sin justify present execution? Who decides the threshold?" "The guilty. Define guilty. Everyone carries sin. Everyone has hurt someone. Everyone has done something they regret. If you judge based on guilt alone, you'd burn the entire world to ash. There has to be proportionality. There has to be mercy. Otherwise, you're not delivering justice. You're just another monster wearing a different face." GCPD vehicles screeched to a halt around them, officers pouring out with weapons drawn. Gordon emerged from the lead car, weathered face set in grim determination, holding a warrant that had been signed by a judge Batman had carefully ensured was incorruptible. "Ah, Batman," Gordon acknowledged with a curt nod. Then his eyes fell on Ghost Rider, and decades of police experience warred with the instinct to flee from something his hindbrain recognized as predator. "What? Who?" "A concerned citizen," Batman said. "Here to ensure justice is served." Gordon's hand moved toward his sidearm. Reflex more than serious intent, then dropped. Right. Concerned citizen. With a flaming skull for a head. Why is nothing in this city ever normal? Welcome to Gotham, Commissioner, Ghost Rider said, voice like grinding stone. Gordon's face went pale, but he held his ground. 40 years of police work had prepared him for a lot of things. Flaming skeleton demon vigilantes weren't on the list, but he adapted. We're here to arrest Victor Saz for 7 counts of murder, conspiracy to commit arson, on bribery of public officials, and about 30 other charges. You planning to interfere? That depends, Ghost Rider said. Are you planning to let him escape? Gordon's jaw set. Not a chance in hell? We'll see. The raid took 12 minutes. Saz's lawyers arrived in 10, already filing motions and demanding bail. But Gordon had come prepared. The evidence Batman had gathered, delivered anonymously through Constantine's contacts, was comprehensive enough that even Gotham's corrupt judges would have trouble dismissing it. Saz was led out in handcuffs, still wearing his expensive suit, still smiling that confident smile of men who'd bought their way out of trouble before. His eyes swept across the scene. Batman in shadow, Ghost Rider burning in the street, Gordon reading him his rights in a voice that promised this arrest would stick. For just a moment, Sasha's confidence wavered. He saw Ghost Rider, saw the flames, and something in his guilty soul recognized judgment when it stared at him with eye sockets full of hellfire. He'll escape, Ghost Rider said quietly, only Batman close enough to hear. His lawyers will find a technicality. A judge will reduce bail. He'll flee to a country without extradition. This isn't justice. This is theater. Then I'll hunt him down, Batman replied. And I'll bring him back, however long it takes, however far he runs. That's my promise to Sarah Jennings. Ghost Rider watched Zaz being loaded into a police transport, flames flickering with emotions that might have been disappointment or respect or something between. Your promise may come too late for his next victims. Then I'll save them before he can hurt them. That's what I do. I prevent crime, not just punish it. Prevention through fear of consequences. Punishment. It's vengeance by another name. No, Batman said. It's justice. Slow, imperfect, human justice. But justice nonetheless. The spirit of vengeance stood silent as the police convoy pulled away, taking Victor Saz toward a trial that would determine whether Gotham's system could deliver justice for 7 murdered children. Ghost Rider's flames burned low, contemplative, the hellfire banked to a simmer. You have faith in broken systems, Ghost Rider said finally. Faith that justice will prevail despite evidence to the contrary. That faith is either noble or foolish. I have not decided which. Neither have I, Batman admitted. But I keep the faith anyway, and because the alternative is becoming what I fight. Ghost Rider's motorcycle rumbled to life, hellfire dancing along chrome that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. I will watch. I will wait. And if your justice fails, if Sas escapes, if more children die, I will deliver the judgment your system could not. Fair enough? The spirit of vengeance rode into Gotham's shadows, flames fading but never truly extinguishing, leaving Batman alone with his doubts and his convictions and the weight of a promise he'd made to a dead 12-year-old girl he'd never met. Sarah Jennings deserved justice. Whether Batman's way could deliver it remained to be seen. The Gotham City courthouse stood like a monument to the city's endless struggle between law and chaos, its neoclassical columns stained by decades of acid rain and corruption. Yet Batman watched from a rooftop across the street as the media circus assembled for Victor Sas's arraignment. Cameras, reporters, protesters holding signs demanding justice for Sarah Jennings and the 6 other children who'd burned to death. 3 days had passed since Sas's arrest. 3 days of legal maneuvering, of lawyers filing motions, of judges weighing evidence against political pressure. The city held its breath, waiting to see if Gotham's justice system could actually function when it mattered most. Oracle's voice crackled through Batman's cowl. Arraignment starts in 5 minutes. DA's office is confident they can deny bail. The evidence you provided is solid. Witness testimony, financial records linking Saz to the arson team, communications proving premeditation. Even his high-priced lawyers are sweating. Confidence means nothing until the judge rules, Batman said, scanning the crowd for threats. Zaj had connections. Those connections wouldn't let him go down without a fight. Cynical, even for you. Realistic. His eyes tracked a suspicious figure moving through the crowd. Too purposeful, hand in jacket pocket. Batman's targeting system locked on. Hold that thought. He dropped from the rooftop, cape spreading to slow his descent, landing behind the figure just as the hand emerged with a phone. Just a phone. The man was texting, oblivious to how close he'd come to a bat interrogation. Batman retreated to the shadows, frustration burning beneath his carefully controlled exterior. He was wound too tight, seeing threats everywhere, because he knew Ghost Rider was watching. Somewhere in Gotham's darkness, the spirit of vengeance waited for Batman's justice to fail. It couldn't fail, not this time. Inside the courthouse, Victor Sage sat beside his legal team, 3 attorneys whose fees could have funded the entire children's hospital for a year. He wore a tailored suit, hair perfectly styled, the picture of innocent businessman persecuted by overzealous law enforcement. Only his eyes betrayed him, darting nervously to the courtroom exits as if calculating escape routes. The bailiff announced Judge Maria Castellano, a woman whose reputation for integrity had survived 15 years on Gotham's bench. No small feat. She took her seat, reviewed the case file with an expression that suggested she'd already read it thoroughly, and fixed Saz with a look that made his lawyers shift uncomfortably. Mr. Alshash, she began, voice carrying the weight of judicial authority. You stand accused of 7 counts of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit arson, bribery of public officials, and obstruction of justice. How do you plead? Not guilty, Your Honor, Sas's lead attorney answered smoothly. My client is a respected businessman being railroaded by a media witch hunt. We request immediate bail so he can prepare his defense from home, rather than being subjected to the deplorable conditions of Gotham's detention facilities. The assistant DA, a young woman named Rebecca Chen, who'd requested this case specifically after seeing photos of the victims, stood with barely controlled fury. Your Honor, the people oppose bail. Mr. Sash is a flight risk with extensive international connections and the financial resources to disappear. His 7 children are dead because of his actions. Granting bail would be a travesty of justice. Judge Castellano's expression remained neutral, but something in her eyes suggested she'd already made her decision. The evidence presented is substantial. Multiple witnesses, financial records, communications that suggest premeditation and deliberate cover-up. Mr. Saz, even your considerable resources cannot erase the weight of this evidence. Zash's lead attorney stood quickly. Your Honor, our client is presumed innocent until... I'm well aware of the presumption of innocence, Counselor. I'm also aware that 7 children died in a fire your client allegedly orchestrated. Bail is denied. Mr. Sash will remain in custody pending trial. The gavel struck like thunder. For a moment, Sas's mask slipped. The confident smile vanished, replaced by naked fear as reality crashed through his delusions of invincibility. His lawyers began arguing procedural objections, but Judge Castellano shut them down with practiced efficiency. Batman watched through a microcamera he'd planted in the courtroom, a rare smile tugging at his lips beneath the cowl. The system had worked. Not perfectly. Trial was still months away, and Saz's lawyers would fight every step. But it had worked. Justice, slow and imperfect, had delivered its first victory. He tapped his comm. Oracle, make sure nothing happens to Judge Castellano or ADA Chen. They've just made powerful enemies. Already on it, surveillance coverage increased, bodyguards assigned. Bruce, this is good news. Why do you sound like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop? Because in Gotham, there's always another shoe. The words proved prophetic 3 hours later. Batman was investigating a weapons smuggling operation in the Bowery when the call came through. Gordon's voice tight with controlled panic. We've got a situation at Blackgate. Sash is in the infirmary. Someone poisoned him. Batman's blood ran cold. Status? Critical but stable. Doctors say someone slipped something into his food. Professional job. Fast acting. Nearly undetectable. He'd be dead if the guard hadn't noticed him seizing and called for help immediately. Suicide attempt? Poison was in food served to his entire cell block. Only his was contaminated. This was assassination, not suicide. Someone wants him dead before he can talk. Batman changed course, the Batmobile roaring toward Blackgate Penitentiary. I'm en route. Lock down the prison. No one in or out until I've swept for evidence. Already done. But Bruce, Gordon's voice dropped lower. There's something else. The guard who saved Saz? He's telling a weird story. Says he saw something in the shadows of Saz's cell. Something with flames for eyes. The pieces clicked together. Ghost Rider had been watching, waiting. When the assassination attempt occurred, the spirit had intervened. Not to save Zaz, but to preserve him for judgment. Death by poison was too quick, too clean. The spirit of vengeance wanted Zaz to face trial, face conviction, face the slow grinding of justice before eternal damnation claimed him. Blackgate Penitentiary rose from Gotham Bay like a fortress of despair, its walls holding the city's worst behind reinforced steel and concrete. A Batman bypassed security. Gordon had given him access years ago for exactly these situations, and headed directly to the infirmary. Saz lay in a hospital bed, pale and sweating, IV drip, feeding him whatever antidote the prison doctors had administered. Two guards stood watch, weapons ready, eyes darting nervously. They'd heard the stories about Batman. Seeing him in person was something else entirely. Out, Batman ordered. The guards left without argument. Alone with Gotham's most recent monster, Batman studied Saz with clinical detachment. The man's bravado had evaporated completely. Prison had stripped away the expensive suits and confident smile, leaving only a frightened middle-aged man who'd gambled on corruption and lost. You, Sash croaked, voice raw from whatever toxin had nearly killed him. You did this. You set me up. I gathered evidence of your crimes. The justice system did the rest. Justice? Sash laughed bitterly. There's no justice, just power. I had it, used it. You have it, use it. The only difference is you wear a costume and pretend you're better than me. Batman leaned closer, voice dropping to the gravelly whisper that had broken hardened criminals. The difference is those 7 children are dead because of your choices. I've dedicated my life to making sure people like you face consequences. Someone tried to kill me. Sas's eyes went wide with paranoid fear. My associates. They think I'll talk, make deals. You have to protect me. The guards will keep you alive until trial. No, you don't understand. These people, they're connected everywhere. They'll try again. They'll succeed. Here, you need to put me in protective custody, witness protection, something. You'll get what the law provides, nothing more. Sas grabbed Batman's cape with trembling hands. Please, I'm scared. I don't want to die. I'll tell you everything. Everyone involved. Names, dates, bank accounts. Just protect me. Batman looked down at the pathetic figure clinging to him. A man who'd murdered 7 children for profit, now begging for the very justice he'd tried to corrupt. You should have thought about that before you chained those exits, before you sabotaged those sprinklers, before you condemned Sarah Jennings and 6 other children to burn to death. He pulled free of Sas's grip and turned to leave. Wait, Zash screamed. There was something else in my cell. Something not human. Flames and bones and eyes that saw through me. It spoke. He said it was waiting. Waiting for justice to fail so it could deliver judgment. What was that thing? Batman paused at the door. Motivation. Every moment you're alive, that thing is watching. Waiting. Hoping you'll escape so it can hunt you. Your only safety is staying exactly where you are, facing trial, accepting whatever sentence the court delivers. Because the alternative is that creature, and it doesn't offer plea bargains. He left Zaz whimpering in the infirmary, mind broken by glimpsing the spirit of vengeance's true nature. Fear was good. Fear would keep him from attempting escape. Fear would ensure he lived to face human justice before cosmic judgment claimed him. In the hallway, Batman found Gordon waiting, face grave. The poison came from inside. Guard named Marcus Chen, no relation to the ADA. He's worked here 6 years. Our clean record, but His bank account just received a deposit of $50,000 from a shell corporation we're tracing now. Sas's associates cleaning up loose ends. Yeah, Chen's in custody, but he's already lawyered up. We might never know who hired him. Gordon sighed, exhaustion evident in every line of his weathered face. This case is going to be a nightmare. Every step, Sas's people will try to sabotage it. Witnesses will disappear. Evidence will get lost. Judges will suddenly recuse themselves. How do we fight that? The same way we fight everything else, one step at a time. Batman's hand moved to Gordon's shoulder, a rare gesture of solidarity. You did good work, Jim. The arraignment held. Sash is in custody. That's more than most cases get in this city. It's not enough. 7 kids are dead. Their families deserve more than we tried our best. They deserve justice. We'll deliver it. Gordon met his eyes, searching for certainty in the white lenses of the cowl. You really believe that? After everything we've seen? After every monster who's walked free because some lawyer found a loophole? Batman considered the question, the same one Ghost Rider had posed. Why keep faith in a broken system? I have to believe it, he said finally. Because the alternative is executing people based on my judgment. And I'm not wise enough, not infallible enough, to decide who lives and dies. No one is. Even when they're guilty, even when the evidence is overwhelming, especially then. Because once I cross that line, I become judge, jury, and executioner. I become the very thing I fight. And Gotham needs someone who still believes the system can work, even when it fails, even when monsters walk free. Someone has to keep fighting the right way. Gordon nodded slowly. Must be exhausting, being that idealistic in a city like this. Every single day. They stood in silence, 2 men dedicated to justice in a city that seemed designed to crush such idealism. Around them, Blackgate's walls echoed with the sounds of Gotham's convicted, criminals who'd faced judgment and lost, now paying society's price. Somewhere in those shadows, Ghost Rider watched. Batman could feel the spirit's presence like heat on his skin, flames banked but never extinguished. Waiting. Judging. Testing whether human justice could deliver what cosmic vengeance demanded. The trial would be the ultimate test. If Sash was convicted, if the system worked despite corruption and intimidation and money, then maybe, just maybe, Ghost Rider would accept that vengeance wasn't the only answer. And if the system failed? If Zaz walked free on technicalities? Then Batman would have to stop the spirit of vengeance from delivering the judgment Gotham's courts couldn't. Would have to choose between his code and a guilty man's life. Would have to defend the very system that had failed Sarah Jennings and 6 other children. He didn't know if he could make that choice. He didn't know if he should. The House of Mystery had relocated to Old Gotham, manifesting in the shell of a burnt-out church that had witnessed centuries of the city's sins. Constantine sat on a broken pew, surrounded by empty beer bottles and cigarette butts, using the remnants of stained glass as an ashtray while he worked through protective spells. Zatanna paced nearby, top hat abandoned on an altar that had once held prayers now replaced by arcane texts. The trial starts in 3 days. Every magical early warning system I've got is screaming that something catastrophic is coming. The spirit of vengeance isn't just watching anymore, it's preparing. Preparing for what? Etrigan lounged in the shadows, yellow skin gleaming in candlelight, rhymes momentarily suppressed by the gravity of the situation. For the system to fail, Constantine said, not looking up from his spell work. Ghost Rider gave Batman a chance, gave Gotham's justice system a chance. But it's been waiting since before Rome fell. And patience isn't exactly humanity's strong suit when corruption's involved. Zatanna stopped pacing. You think Sash will walk? I think he's got enough money to make walking a distinct possibility. His lawyers are the best blood money can buy. They've already filed 17 motions, attacked every piece of evidence, and started a media campaign painting him as a persecuted entrepreneur. The jury pool is poisoned before selection even begins. Batman won't let him escape. Batman can't control 12 random citizens once they're in that jury box. Constantine finally looked up, eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights researching cosmic law. I've been studying the spirit of vengeance's nature. It's not evil, not chaotic. It's absolute law, moral law that predates human civilization. When human systems fail to deliver justice, the spirit steps in. It's a cosmic failsafe. Etrigan's voice rumbled from the darkness. A failsafe built on flame and bone, for sins that courts will not atone. When mortal justice proves too weak, vengeance finds the souls it seeks. Right, thanks for the poetry. Constantine lit another cigarette. Point is, if Sauce walks, Ghost Rider will execute him immediately. No hesitation, no second chances. And Batman will try to stop it, which means we're looking at a confrontation between Gotham's protector and a cosmic force that's judged emperors and warlords. Zatanna's hands moved through defensive patterns. Can we stop it, if it comes to that? Stop the spirit of vengeance? Constantine laughed bitterly. We can barely slow it down. I've got every banishment spell in 10 languages ready to go, and I give them a 5% success rate. Maybe. The spirit exists across multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. You banish it from one, it just manifests through another. Then we need to make sure the trial succeeds, Zatanna said firmly. Ensure the jury convicts. Use magic to… No, Constantine's voice cut like a blade. We start magically manipulating jury outcomes. We're no better than the corruption we're fighting. Plus, Ghost Rider would sense it immediately. The spirit judges based on truth, not magical coercion. We fake justice. It'll burn everyone involved. So what do? Constantine stood, joints cracking from hours hunched over spell work. We prepare for war. We ward the courthouse, protect the jury, and hope Batman's faith in the system isn't as misplaced as I think it is. Across the city, in the Batcave's analysis chamber, Batman reviewed trial preparations with the focus of a general planning for siege warfare. Holographic displays showed jury selections, witness lists, evidence chains, and hundreds of variables that could tilt the case either way. Oracle worked alongside him, fingers flying across keyboards as she monitored potential threats. Jury selection finished today. 7 women, 5 men. 2 are parents. 3 have children in Gotham's public schools. Demographics suggest they'll be sympathetic to the victims, but Sauce's lawyers challenged anyone with obvious bias. The final 12 are unpredictable. Jury composition? Mix of blue-collar and white-collar. Teacher, accountant, mechanic, nurse, retail manager, construction foreman, librarian, IT specialist, restaurant owner, postal worker, graphic designer, and a retiree who worked in city administration. No obvious connections to Shaw's or his businesses, but we're still running deep background checks. Batman studied each juror's file with meticulous attention. People. Ordinary people who would decide whether Gotham's justice system could function when it mattered most. Their decision would determine not just Sauce's fate, but whether Batman's entire philosophy had merit. Threats? He asked. Constant. Sauce's associates have made contact with 3 jurors so far. Nothing actionable, just chance encounters that were clearly intimidation attempts. I've got surveillance on all 12, plus their families. GCPD has increased security around the courthouse. A DHN has received 7 death threats this week alone. Judge Castellano? 13 threats. You'd 2 serious enough that I've recommended private security. She refused. Says accepting protection would signal that the court system can be intimidated. Batman's respect for the judge increased. Courage in Gotham was common enough. The city bred it out of necessity. But courage combined with principles? That was rare. What about Ghost Rider? Oracle's typing paused. No sightings since the Blackgate incident. But Constantine sent a report. The spirit is still in Gotham, watching. Waiting. He's felt… what did he call it? Cosmic anticipation. Like reality itself is holding its breath. Batman understood that feeling. He felt it too. Every time he patrolled Crime Alley where this had started, every time he passed the site where Sarah Jennings had died, the weight of expectation, of judgment, of a test he couldn't afford to fail. His comm buzzed. Gordon's private line. We've got a problem, the commissioner said without preamble. Two of our key witnesses just recanted their testimony. The fire inspector who was bribed and the construction foreman who helped chain the exits. Both suddenly claiming they misremembered, made mistakes, were coerced by aggressive investigators. Batman's jaw clenched. Saj got to them. Obviously, but proving it is another matter. Their recantations are sworn affidavits signed by lawyers. A DHN is scrambling to shore up the case with remaining witnesses. But this is bad. Those two were crucial to establishing the chain of conspiracy. What about the financial records? Still solid. We can prove money changed hands. But without testimony explaining what that money was for, Shash's lawyers will argue it was legitimate business transactions. They're already spinning it as Batman manufacturing evidence to frame an innocent businessman. They're claiming I fabricated bank records? They're claiming you're a vigilante with unknown methods and no legal authority who's conducting a vendetta against successful entrepreneurs. And in Gotham, that argument has traction. Half the city thinks you're a necessary evil. The other half thinks you're just evil. Batman knew Gordon was right. He'd operated in legal gray areas for years, gathering evidence through methods no court would sanction, forcing confessions through intimidation, using fear as a weapon. It worked against street criminals who lacked resources to fight back. But against someone like Sauce, with money for lawyers who could challenge every piece of evidence, his methods became liabilities. The case can still win, he said, more to convince himself than Gordon. Chen is good. The jury will see through the defense's tactics. I hope you're right, because if Saz walks... Gordon trailed off, but the implication hung heavy. If Saz walked, Ghost Rider would deliver the judgment Gotham's courts couldn't. And Batman would be forced to defend a child murderer from cosmic vengeance or abandon every principle he'd built his identity upon. There were no good choices, only terrible ones. The night before trial, Batman found Ghost Rider in Crime Alley, standing at the exact spot where Thomas and Martha Wayne had died. The spirit stood motionless, flames dimmed to almost nothing, studying the memorial plaque that marked where Gotham's greatest tragedy had spawned its darkest protector. This is where it began for you, Ghost Rider said without turning. Where you learned that justice fails, that good people die while evil flourishes, that the system cannot protect the innocent. Batman approached slowly, cape dragging through puddles that reflected hellfire and starlight in equal measure. This is where I learned that someone has to fight, even if the system is broken, even if the odds are impossible. You fight using that system's tools, evidence, trials, laws written by corrupt politicians and enforced by overwhelmed police. You hamstring yourself with rules while your enemies have none. Those rules are the only thing separating civilization from chaos. Ghost Rider turned, eye sockets flaring. Your parents died in this alley while civilization watched? Where was justice then? Where was the system that's supposed to protect the innocent? The words struck like bullets, hitting wounds that had never healed. Batman had asked himself the same questions 10,000 times. Why hadn't anyone helped? Why had the system failed? Why had two good people died while their killer walked free for years? Joe Chill was eventually caught, Batman said quietly. Tried. Convicted. Served his sentence. 20 years later, after he'd killed 6 more people, after your parents' bodies had turned to dust. That's your justice? Too late and too little? It's better than execution without trial. Is it? Ghost Rider gestured at the alley, at the city beyond, at Gotham's endless carnival of suffering. Like, how many Joe Chills walk these streets right now? How many Victor Sazas plan their next atrocity while lawyers protect them? How many Sarah Jenningses will die because you insist on a system that values procedure over protection? Batman had no answer, because Ghost Rider was asking the questions he'd asked himself every night since putting on the cowl. The questions that haunted every hero who'd ever tried to work within systems designed by humans, corrupted by humans, failing humans. Tomorrow, the trial begins, Ghost Rider continued. 12 people who know nothing of justice will decide Sas's fate. Lawyers will perform theater. Judges will enforce arcane rules. And somewhere in that circus, truth will struggle to be heard. You call this justice. I call it mockery. What would you call justice? Truth. Absolute truth. Nam the penance stare shows the guilty their sins reflected in hellfire. No lawyers can argue against their own memories. No judges can suppress evidence the soul carries. The guilty know they're guilty. The spirit delivers consequences that match crimes. That is justice. That's vengeance. Call it what you want. The result is the same. Evil is punished. The innocent are avenged. Society is protected from those who would prey upon it. Batman studied the spirit, seeing past the flames to the entity beneath. Something old, something absolute, something that had existed before moral ambiguity complicated simple truths. Ghost Rider was right about one thing. Its justice was simple, clear, unambiguous. It was also terrifying, because once you accepted that someone, something, could judge and execute based on absolute moral authority, you opened doors that could never close. Today it was Saj, guilty beyond question. Tomorrow it might be someone whose guilt was less clear. Next week, someone who'd sinned but didn't deserve death. Where was the line? Who drew it? If Saj is acquitted, Batman said carefully, what will you do? Deliver the judgment your system could not. Even if I try to stop you? Ghost Rider's flames roared higher. You cannot stop me, Dark Knight. You can barely slow me. I am vengeance made manifest. I am the consequence that mortal law cannot deliver. I am what happens when justice fails. And if justice succeeds? If the jury convicts? The flames dimmed slightly. Then I will wait. I will watch. I will see if your system can actually deliver the punishment his crimes deserve. Prison. True imprisonment. Not the revolving door your city calls incarceration. Life without parole. No deals, no early release, no technicalities. If your justice can deliver that, the spirit paused, then perhaps there is merit in your way. Perhaps vengeance need not always be delivered by flame. It was the closest thing to compromise Batman would get. If the system worked, truly worked, delivered actual consequences, Ghost Rider would accept it, would leave Saz to mortal justice and cosmic judgment after death. But if the system failed, I'll do everything in my power to ensure a fair trial, Batman said. Fair is not the same as just. I know, but it's the best we have. Ghost Rider turned back to the memorial plaque, flames reflecting in the polished metal. Your parents deserved better than the best we have. Sarah Jennings deserved better, or every victim of every crime deserves better. Yet you continue defending a system that fails them. Because the alternative fails everyone. They stood in silence, Dark Knight and Spirit of Vengeance, at the place where Batman's crusade had been born. Tomorrow, a jury would decide if that crusade had merit. If human justice could function when it mattered most. If Gotham deserved the symbol of hope Batman represented, or the flames of judgment Ghost Rider offered. Batman didn't know which outcome scared him more. The Gotham City courthouse hummed with tension as day one of the trial commenced. Media vans lined the street, protesters held vigils for the 7 dead children, and inside the Baroque courtroom, 12 citizens sat in the jury box, faces carefully neutral as they prepared to decide whether justice could function in America's most corrupt city. Batman watched from the shadows of the gallery's back row, cowl folded down, appearing as just another dark-suited observer. Bruce Wayne couldn't attend, too high profile, too much scrutiny, but Batman could. No one questioned the presence of Gotham's protector at a trial this significant. Ghost Rider's presence was less visible, but more pervasive. Constantine had reported sensing the spirit throughout the courthouse, in the walls, in the shadows, in the very air itself. The entity existed partially outside physical reality, observing from multiple dimensions simultaneously, flames banked but ready to ignite. Judge Castellanos' gavel struck, silencing the courtroom. The people of Gotham versus Victor Sage. And are both sides ready to proceed? Ada Rebecca Chen stood, young but fierce, carrying evidence binders that represented months of investigation. The people are ready, Your Honor. Sage's lead attorney, Thomas Marlowe, 63, with a reputation for defending Gotham's elite and a win record that had made him wealthy beyond most people's dreams, rose with practiced grace. The defense is ready, Your Honor. Very well, Ms. Chen, your opening statement. Rebecca Chen approached the jury box, making eye contact with each juror before beginning. When she spoke, her voice carried controlled passion, the voice of someone who'd studied the victims' photos until their faces haunted her dreams. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, over the next several days you will hear about 7 people who died in what appeared to be a tragic accident, a fire at a charity gala. Victims caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's what the defendant wants you to believe. That's what he paid very well to make you believe. She pulled up the first image. The Gotham Children's Hospital before the fire, children in the windows, smiling and waving during the fundraiser. But the evidence will show you something very different. The evidence will show that Victor Sash wanted the land this hospital occupied, that he made offers to purchase it, that when those offers were refused, he decided to take what he wanted through murder. Marlowe objected. Inflammatory language, Your Honor. Murder presumes facts, not an evidence. Sustained, Judge Castellano ruled. Ms. Chen, please confine your opening to what the evidence will demonstrate. Chen nodded, barely breaking stride. The evidence will demonstrate that on the night of March 15th, professionals hired by the defendant sabotaged the hospital's sprinkler system, chained the emergency exits from the outside, and started a fire in the kitchen during the fundraiser. The evidence will show that Mr. Saj paid these professionals, that he communicated with them before and after the fire, that he attempted to cover his tracks through bribery and intimidation. She paused, letting the weight settle on the jury. The evidence will prove that 7 people died not by accident but by design. Sarah Jennings, age 12. Marcus Chen, age 8. Timothy Walsh, age 6. Rebecca Ortiz, age 9. David Kim, age 7. Isabella Rodriguez, age 10. Jonathan Hayes, age 11. 7 children whose only crime was attending a fundraiser to help other sick children. Her voice broke slightly on the last sentence, genuine emotion that Marlowe would try to paint as manipulation, but which resonated in the jury box. Batman saw several jurors' expressions harden, saw the father of 2 blink back moisture, saw the nurse's hands clench. At the end of this trial, Chen concluded, we will ask you to hold Victor Sass accountable for these 7 murders, to deliver the justice these children and their families deserve. Thank you. She sat down. The courtroom remained silent for 3 heartbeats. Then Marlowe stood, and the performance began. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, voice smooth as aged whiskey. What you just heard was a tragic story, a horrible tragedy, on 7 young lives lost in a fire that should never have happened. My heart, my client's heart, breaks for these families. He paused, hand over chest in a gesture of sympathy that looked rehearsed because it was. But tragedy does not equal murder. Grief does not equal evidence. And suspicion, no matter how strongly certain parties might feel it, does not equal guilt. Batman's jaw tightened. Marlowe was good, deflecting, reframing, planting seeds of reasonable doubt before the prosecution had even called its first witness. The prosecution will present you with financial records, innocent business transactions that they will try to paint as sinister payments. They will present you with testimony from alleged witnesses, people who have criminal records, people who made deals with prosecutors to avoid their own charges, are people who have every reason to lie to save themselves. He gestured dismissively at Chen's evidence binders. They will present you with a conspiracy theory built on supposition and innuendo. But they will not, cannot, present direct evidence that Victor Sauce ordered, planned, or executed these terrible acts. Because that evidence doesn't exist. Because Victor Sauce is innocent. The word hung in the air like a challenge. My client is a successful businessman. That success has made him enemies. People who resent his achievements. Who see tragedy as an opportunity to destroy someone they envy. The real question isn't whether a fire happened. We all agree it did. The question is, who benefits from falsely accusing Victor Sash? Marlowe let the implication linger. That Batman, that the police, or that someone with an agenda had manufactured this case. Over the course of this trial, we will demonstrate that the prosecution's case is built on sand, that every piece of evidence has an innocent explanation, that Victor Sauce is not a monster, but a scapegoat. And when you've heard all the evidence, when you've seen the truth beneath the prosecution's narrative, I am confident you will find my client not guilty. Thank you. He sat down to absolute silence. Judge Castellano called a 15-minute recess. The jury filed out, faces troubled, already wrestling with competing narratives. Batman slipped from the courtroom and found Constantine smoking on the courthouse steps, magical wards glowing faintly around the building's perimeter. "Well?" Constantine asked without preamble. "Marlowe is better than I expected. He's already planting doubt." "Course he is. Bloke's been getting guilty rich bastards off for 30 years. He knows every trick, every psychological manipulation. And juries, especially Gotham juries, want to believe the system works fairly. They don't want to convict unless they're absolutely certain. Marlowe just needs to make them uncertain. The evidence is solid. Evidence doesn't matter if he can make the jury distrust it. Make them question motives. Make them think Batman planned it all because of some vendetta." Constantine took a long drag, exhaled smoke that formed temporary wards against listening spells. "Where's our flaming friend?" "Here, watching." "Feel it too. The whole building's saturated with his presence. He's not just observing, he's judging everyone. Jury, lawyers, judge, witnesses. All of us." Constantine's hand shook slightly as he lit another cigarette. "It's unnerving, being judged by something that old. Something that absolute." Batman understood. He'd felt the spirit's gaze in the courtroom, weighing every word, every gesture, measuring whether human justice deserved to exist. The pressure was immense. "Chen is good," he said. "She'll make the case." "She's good, but Marlowe's better. And he's got home field advantage. Gotham juries have convicted plenty of innocents and freed plenty of monsters. They're conditioned to distrust the system." Constantine met Batman's eyes. "You're betting everything on 12 random people doing the right thing in a city where corruption is the norm. That's not strategy. That's prayer. Sometimes prayer is all we have. Right. And if your prayers aren't answered? If Sash walks?" Batman didn't answer. He didn't have to. They both knew what would happen if the jury failed to convict. The trial continued for 3 brutal days. The prosecution presented financial records showing payments from saws to known arsonists. Cell phone records proving communication. Witness testimony from a security guard who'd seen the exits being chained. Forensic evidence demonstrating the sprinkler sabotage. Photographs of the victims that made several jurors weep openly. The defense countered with explanations for every payment. Legitimate business expenses, documented in tax records. Challenged every witness as unreliable criminals seeking plea deals. Brought their own experts to question the forensics. Painted Sash as a philanthropist being persecuted. Batman watched it all. You were seeing the jury's expressions shift with each new revelation. The mechanic looked convinced of guilt. The retiree seemed skeptical. The teacher wavered between both. It was impossible to predict which way they'd break. On day 3, Chen called her final witness, Sarah Jennings's mother. The woman was hollowed out by grief, eyes that had cried until no tears remained. She testified about her daughter's battle with leukemia, her triumph over cancer, her excitement about the fundraiser. Her voice cracked when describing the last words Sarah had spoken. "I love you, Mom. See you later." Later never came. Marlowe's cross-examination was brutal but necessary. He couldn't afford sympathy to override reasonable doubt. He pressed about whether she'd actually seen Sauce at the scene, whether she had direct knowledge of his involvement, and the mother admitted she didn't. She only knew her daughter was dead, and someone had to be responsible. Objection. Marlowe's voice was gentle but firm. Move to strike. The witness is understandably emotional, but her testimony contains no factual evidence linking my client to these tragic events. Sustained, Judge Castellano ruled, though her expression suggested it pained her. The jury will disregard the witness's statement about responsibility. But you couldn't disregard a mother's grief. It hung in the courtroom like smoke, suffocating, inescapable. When court adjourned for the day, Batman found Ghost Rider on the courthouse roof, flames burning brighter than they had in days. The mother's pain, the spirit said. It echoes Sarah's scream, the cry that brought me here. I feel it across dimensions, a wound in reality itself that demands healing. Justice will heal it. Will it? Ghost Rider turned, eye sockets blazing. Justice delayed is justice denied. That mother will carry her grief until death. No verdict will bring her daughter back. No prison sentence will unmake her suffering. What healing can your justice possibly provide? Accountability, the knowledge that her daughter's killer faced consequences. If he faces consequences. If your jury delivers. If the system works this one time despite failing countless times before. The flames roared higher. I grow tired of waiting, Dark Knight. Tired of watching guilty men defended by technicalities. Tomorrow the jury deliberates. If they fail, they won't. You have more faith than evidence supports. Batman couldn't argue. Faith was all he had left. The jury deliberated for 18 hours. 18 hours during which Gotham held its breath. 18 hours during which Batman monitored every communication channel, every security feed, ready to stop any attempt to interfere with the verdict. 18 hours during which Ghost Rider's presence grew heavier, flames visible even to normal humans as supernatural tensions saturated the courthouse. Constantine had reinforced the wards 3 times, each layer burning out faster than the last under the spirit's cosmic pressure. Zatanna stood in the hallway outside the jury room, hands weaving protective spells that flickered and died as soon as they formed. Even Etrigan had manifested, yellow skin gleaming with sweat that demons shouldn't produce, rhyming voice subdued by the weight of impending judgment. Wag, the spirit grows impatient, the demon said, abandoning verse for the first time Batman had witnessed. If the jury fails, vengeance will burn this courthouse to its foundation. I can feel it building. Hellfire from another reality, ready to consume everything. They'll convict, Batman said, though his voice lacked certainty. Will they? Constantine lit his 20th cigarette of the night. I've been watching the jury room through scrying spells. They're deadlocked. 8 for conviction, 4 for acquittal. The retiree thinks the evidence is circumstantial. The accountant doesn't trust police testimony. The IT specialist keeps talking about reasonable doubt. The postal worker thinks Zosh is being framed. 8-4. That's a majority. Needs to be unanimous, mate. And those 4 aren't budging. They've been arguing for hours. One juror, the teacher, is close to flipping to not guilty just to end deliberations. People get tired. They want to go home. They convince themselves that doubt means acquittal, even when the evidence is overwhelming. Batman's hands clenched. He'd accounted for Saz's lawyers, for witness intimidation, for media manipulation. But he hadn't accounted for human fatigue, for the psychological pressure of deciding another person's fate, for the simple desire to be done with an emotionally exhausting ordeal. There must be something we can do. Nothing legal, Constantine said grimly. I could cast a spell, make them see truth more clearly. But that's jury tampering with magic instead of money. Ghost Rider would sense it instantly and burn us all for corrupting justice. We're trapped. Can't interfere. Can't guarantee the right outcome. I can only wait and hope. Hope is all we've ever had. Hope doesn't have a great track record in Gotham. The words were interrupted by a door opening. The jury room. 12 exhausted people filed back into the courtroom, faces drawn, eyes bloodshot. Judge Castellano took her seat, expression carefully neutral, though Batman detected tension in her shoulders. Has the jury reached a verdict? She asked. The foreman, a middle-aged mechanic named Robert Chen, no relation to the ADA or the deceased child, stood slowly. He held a piece of paper that would determine whether Batman's entire philosophy had merit or whether Ghost Rider's absolute judgment was the only real justice. We have, Your Honor. The courtroom fell silent. Batman felt Ghost Rider's presence intensify, flames building in the supernatural spaces between dimensions. The spirit was prepared to act the instant the verdict was read. In the case of the People versus Victor Saz, on the charge of first-degree murder in the death of Sarah Jennings, how do you find? Robert Chen's voice was steady, tired, but steady. We find the defendant. Time seemed to stretch. Batman saw Sash leaning forward, face pale. Saw Ada Chen gripping the table, knuckles white. Saw Sarah Jennings' mother in the gallery, hands clasped in prayer to gods who hadn't saved her daughter. Guilty. The word detonated like a bomb. Zos recoiled as if struck. Marlowe's face remained professionally neutral, but Batman saw the flicker of surprise. He'd been confident of acquittal. Sarah's mother collapsed into sobs, a lifetime of grief finally meeting a sliver of justice. But the verdict wasn't complete. Ni, on the charge of first-degree murder in the death of Marcus Chen, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of first-degree murder in the death of Timothy Walsh? Guilty. 6 more times the word was spoken. 6 more guilty verdicts for 6 more murdered children. The 7th for the firefighter who died trying to save them. 7 counts of first-degree murder. Guilty on all charges. Judge Castellano polled the jury individually. Yes, this was their verdict. Yes, this was their decision, before accepting it officially. The jury having found the defendant guilty on all counts, sentencing is scheduled for 2 weeks from today. Mr. Sauce will remain in custody without bail. This court is adjourned. The gavel struck. Sasha's scream cut through the courtroom. No, no, this is wrong. I'm innocent. They're lying. All of them. Guards moved to restrain him as he lunged toward the jury box, face twisted with rage and terror. You've killed me. You've sentenced me to death. Marlowe tried to calm him, but Zaz was beyond reason. That thing, that demon. It's been watching, waiting. It's going to burn me. You fed me to a monster. The guards dragged him from the courtroom, still screaming about flames and judgment and things mortals weren't meant to face. The jury looked shaken. They'd convicted a murderer, not sentenced him to supernatural execution. Most didn't understand Zaz's ravings about demons. But Batman understood. And he felt Ghost Rider's presence recede slightly, flames banking as the spirit assessed whether mortal justice had earned its reprieve. Outside the courthouse, media erupted. Protesters cheered. Sarah's mother gave a statement through tears about finally having closure, about knowing her daughter hadn't died for nothing, about justice, imperfect, slow, human justice, finally working. Batman found Constantine and Zatanna on the steps, both looking drained. The system worked, Zatanna said, wonder evident in her voice. It actually worked. The jury convicted. For now, Constantine cautioned. Sentencing in 2 weeks. Appeals after that. Sauce's lawyers won't stop fighting. This isn't over. But it's a start, Batman said. He looked up at the sky, at the stars visible through Gotham's perpetual haze, and felt rather than saw Ghost Rider's presence. The spirit accepted the verdict. It hasn't executed Saz. Yet, Constantine added, Ghost Rider's waiting to see if the sentence matches the crime. Life without parole, or solitary if necessary, actual consequences. If Castellano goes soft, if she gives him any chance at eventual freedom, the spirit will consider the system failed. She won't. I've reviewed her record. She doesn't compromise on child murderers. Let's hope you're right, because if you're wrong... Constantine didn't finish. He didn't need to. Batman returned to the Batcave as dawn broke over Gotham, the city transitioning from night's predators to day's chaos. He should have felt victorious. The system had worked, justice had been served, Ghost Rider had been proven wrong about humanity's capacity for accountability. But he felt only exhaustion. The trial had consumed 3 days. The investigation before it, weeks. And for what? 7 children remained dead. Sarah Jennings would never beat cancer, never grow up, or never experience the life she'd fought so hard to live. Zos's conviction didn't resurrect her. It didn't unmake her suffering in those final moments, clawing at a locked door while smoke filled her lungs. You did it, Oracle's voice came through the calm, softer than usual. The jury convicted, everyone saying it's a victory for justice. Is it? Batman stared at the memorial wall in the cave. Photos of victims he'd failed to save, names etched in stone and memory. 7 children are still dead, Barbara. Zosh being in prison doesn't change that. No, but it means he can't kill again. It means other predators see consequences. It means the system can work, even in Gotham. She paused. You proved Ghost Rider wrong. You proved vengeance isn't the only answer. Did I? Or did I just delay the inevitable? Batman pulled up Sasha's file, studying the man's face. Ghost Rider was right about one thing. My way takes too long. If I'd found the evidence faster, if I'd built the case better, maybe those 3 days would have been enough to stop his next planned arson. Maybe more children would be alive. You can't think like that. You saved whoever would have been in that homeless shelter next week. You saved his future victims. Did I save them? Or did Ghost Rider's presence scare Saz into suspending his plans? Batman closed the file, the question unanswerable. I don't know anymore, Barbara. I used to be certain, absolutely certain, that my way was right. That justice through the system, however flawed, was better than execution. But Ghost Rider made me question everything. Good, Oracle said, and Batman heard steel in her voice. You should question. You should doubt. Because the moment you stop questioning whether your methods are right, you become like the people you fight. Certainty without doubt is tyranny, Bruce. Even when the cause is just. The words settled over him like a cloak, heavier than Kevlar. She was right. Ghost Rider's absolute certainty was terrifying precisely because it allowed no room for error, no space for mercy, no possibility that judgment might be wrong. Batman's doubt, his constant questioning, his willingness to examine his own methods, was what kept him from becoming a monster, even when that doubt was agonizing. Track Sasha's sentencing, he said. Make sure nothing interferes. If the system is going to work, it has to work all the way through. Already on it. And Bruce? You did good. You really did. Batman wanted to believe her, wanted to feel the satisfaction of a case closed, justice served, victory earned. But all he felt was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of defending a system that failed more often than it succeeded. Tired of carrying the weight of Gotham's suffering on shoulders that were only human, despite the cape and cowl that suggested otherwise. He found Ghost Rider waiting in Crime Alley, standing at the Wayne Memorial as if the spirit had known Batman would come here. The flames burned low, contemplative rather than aggressive. Your system worked, Ghost Rider said without preamble. The jury convicted. I did not expect that. Neither did I, Batman admitted. Not entirely. 12 humans, fallible and corruptible, chose justice over self-interest, chose truth over convenience, and chose the difficult path of conviction over the easier path of doubt. The spirit's voice carried something that might have been respect. Perhaps I underestimated your species. Perhaps there is strength in your methods I failed to recognize. Or perhaps you were right, and this was the exception rather than the rule. Ghost Rider turned, eye sockets blazing with renewed intensity. You doubt your own victory? I doubt everything. It's what keeps me human. Batman met the spirit's gaze without flinching. You're absolutely certain in your judgments. You see guilt and deliver vengeance without hesitation. That certainty is powerful, but it's also dangerous. Because absolute certainty allows no room for mercy, no space for redemption, no possibility that someone might deserve a second chance. The guilty do not deserve second chances. Everyone deserves a second chance. That's what separates justice from vengeance. The belief that people can be better, can change, can atone for sins without being consumed by eternal hellfire. The spirit was silent, flames flickering as if processing concepts foreign to its nature. When it spoke, the voice carried weight of eons. I have judged for longer than your species has existed. I have seen empires rise and fall, heroes become tyrants, saints revealed as sinners. In all that time, I have learned one truth. The guilty remain guilty. Redemption is a lie mortals tell themselves to justify mercy they have not earned. Maybe, or maybe redemption is the only thing that makes life worth living, or the possibility of being better tomorrow than we were today. Batman gestured at the memorial plaque. My parents were murdered here. Joe Chill killed them and fled. For years I wanted him dead. Wanted to deliver the judgment you deliver, swift, absolute, final. But when I finally found him, when I had the chance for vengeance, I chose differently. I chose to let the system handle it. He was tried, convicted, imprisoned. And in prison he spent decades regretting what he'd done. teaching other inmates to choose better paths, helping people avoid the choices that led him to murder. He couldn't undo killing my parents, but he did, become better. That's redemption. Imperfect, incomplete, but real. Ghostwriter's flames dimmed to almost nothing. And you believe Victor Saz is capable of such transformation? I don't know. Maybe not. But I believe he deserves the chance to try. Life in prison gives him decades to face what he did, to feel remorse, to perhaps, just perhaps, become something other than a monster. Your way would deny him that possibility. My way would prevent his possibility of escape, of hurting others, of existing as a continuing threat. True, your way is safer, cleaner, more certain, but it's also final. And finality eliminates hope. They stood in the alley where Batman had been born, where Thomas and Martha Wayne's blood had watered the seeds of Gotham's protector. Two beings dedicated to justice, one through flame and judgment, the other through investigation and faith in broken systems. I will attend the sentencing, Ghostwriter said finally. I will watch your judge deliver consequences. If she provides justice, true justice, not the weak compromises your species favors, I will accept that mortal law can function. If she fails, if Zaz receives mercy he has not earned, I will deliver the judgment your courts could not. Fair enough. Ghostwriter's motorcycle materialized from hellfire, engine rumbling with supernatural power. The spirit mounted it, flames building as preparation for departure. But before vanishing, the entity turned back. You are wrong about one thing, Dark Knight. Hope is not absent from vengeance. The innocent hope, pray, that the guilty will face consequences, that justice will be delivered, that their suffering will be acknowledged and avenged. Your hope is for the guilty. Mine is for the innocent. Which hope matters more? The question lingered as Ghostwriter vanished in a burst of flame, leaving only scorch marks and the smell of brimstone. Batman stood alone in Crime Alley, wrestling with a question that had no easy answer. Both hopes mattered. Both deserved consideration. The innocent needed justice. The guilty deserved the possibility of redemption. How to balance those competing needs was the eternal question every justice system grappled with. He didn't have an answer. He suspected no one did. But he would continue trying to find one case at a time, one victory at a time, until Gotham either broke him or he finally made it better. 2 weeks later, the courthouse was packed for sentencing. Judge Castellano took her seat with the gravity of someone about to make a decision that would define her career, her legacy, and possibly the stability of Gotham's entire justice system. Victor Sash stood before her in prison orange, the expensive suits and confident smile long gone. 2 weeks in Blackgate had stripped away the veneer of civilized businessman, revealing the frightened, broken man underneath. His lawyers flanked him, Marlowe still fighting, still filing motions, still doing what expensive lawyers did even when the battle was lost. Batman watched from the gallery's back row, cowl down, appearing as just another observer. But his attention wasn't on Zaz or the judge. It was on the supernatural presence that saturated the courtroom. Ghostwriter, invisible to most but burning like a sun to anyone with magical awareness. Constantine sat 3 rows ahead, hands weaving subtle detection spells, sweat beading on his forehead from the proximity to such concentrated cosmic judgment. Zatanna stood in the hallway outside, maintaining protective wards that strained under the spirit's pressure. Even the normal humans in the courtroom felt something. A tension, a weight, an instinctive awareness that this moment carried significance beyond mere legal proceedings. Judge Castellano reviewed her notes one final time, then looked up at Sash with eyes that had seen 30 years of Gotham's worst and retained their capacity for righteous fury. Mr. Sash, you have been found guilty by a jury of your peers on 7 counts of first-degree murder. Before I impose sentence, do you wish to make a statement? Marlowe whispered urgently in Saz's ear, probably advising silence, preparing for appeals, calculating angles. But Saz pushed him away and stepped forward, voice cracking with desperation. I'm sorry. I know that means nothing to the families. I know those children are dead because of my decisions. I was greedy. I was selfish. I prioritized money and property over human life, and I have to live with that. I can't undo what I did. I can't bring them back. But I'm begging you, please don't give me the maximum sentence. Give me a chance to… To what? Sarah Jennings's mother stood from the gallery, voice sharp as broken glass. To get parole someday? To eventually walk free while my daughter rots in her grave? You chained the exits, Mr. Sash. You trapped children in a burning building. Sarah died clawing at a locked door, her fingers bloody, her lungs filled with smoke. What chance did you give her? Bailiffs moved to escort her out, but Judge Castellano waved them off. Let her speak. My daughter fought cancer for 3 years. 3 years of chemotherapy, of radiation, of her hair falling out and her body destroying itself to kill the disease. She survived. She beat it. She was celebrating life at that fundraiser, celebrating helping other sick children. And you murdered her for land. The mother's voice broke, reformed, continued. You don't deserve sorry. You don't deserve mercy. You deserve everything that's coming to you. She sat down, tears streaming, held by family members who wore the same haunted expression of grief without end. Shash tried to speak again, but Judge Castellano silenced him with a gesture. When she spoke, her voice carried the full weight of judicial authority. Mr. Sash, I have presided over hundreds of cases in my career. I have sentenced gang members, domestic abusers, white-collar criminals, and murderers of every variety. But rarely, very rarely, have I encountered someone whose crimes were committed with such cold calculation, such complete disregard for human life, such pure greed. She paused, letting the words settle. You murdered 7 people. 6 of them were children. You did this not in passion, not in desperation, not even in madness. You did this because they were inconvenient obstacles to your business plans. You valued property over children. You valued money over lives. And when your crime succeeded, you attempted to cover it with bribes, intimidation, and corruption. Saz's face had gone white, hands trembling as realization crashed through denial. The prosecution has recommended 7 consecutive life sentences without possibility of parole. The defense has requested leniency, citing your lack of prior criminal record and expressions of remorse. I have considered both positions. Batman held his breath. This was the moment. If Castellano showed mercy, if she reduced the sentence, Ghostwriter would view it as system failure. The spirit would execute Saj the moment he left the courtroom. Everything, the investigation, the trial, the jury's verdict, would be rendered meaningless by flames and judgment. Judge Castellano's expression hardened to stone. Mr. Saj, I find your expressions of remorse to be self-serving attempts to avoid consequences. You are not sorry for what you did. You are sorry you were caught. Therefore, on each count of first-degree murder, I sentence you to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. These sentences will run consecutively, not concurrently. Sauce's knees buckled. 7 consecutive life sentences meant he would never see freedom, would die in prison, would spend whatever decades remained contemplating the children he'd murdered. Furthermore, Castellano continued, I am recommending to the Bureau of Prisons that you be housed in administrative segregation for your own protection. I am also recommending that your assets be seized and distributed to the victims' families as restitution. Finally, I am forwarding documentation to the district attorney regarding your attempts to bribe witnesses and obstruct justice. Additional charges may be filed. The gavel struck. Final and absolute. This court is adjourned. Sas collapsed, sobbing, as guards moved to escort him from the courtroom. His lawyers immediately began discussing appeals, but their voices carried defeat. The sentence was harsh but defensible. Appeals courts would uphold it. Victor Sas would spend the rest of his life in a 6x8 cell, alone with his guilt and the ghosts of 7 children. Batman felt Ghostwriter's presence recede, not disappearing but banking lower, flames dimming to contemplative embers. The spirit was assessing whether this constituted justice. Outside the courthouse, media swarmed. Sarah's mother gave a statement about closure and justice, and the small comfort of knowing Zas would never hurt anyone else. A D.A. Chen fielded questions about the conviction being a turning point for Gotham's justice system. Gordon stood stoically, weathered face finally showing something like satisfaction. Batman found Constantine on the courthouse steps, lighting a cigarette with trembling hands. "Feel that?" the Hellblazer asked. "Nah, the spirit backed off. Not gone. Probably never truly gone from this dimension now that it's crossed over. But satisfied. Your system delivered. Justice functioned. Ghost Rider's got no grounds to execute Saz now." "He's still watching," Batman observed, sensing the presence even if normal humans couldn't. "Always will be. That's the thing about cosmic forces. They don't just forget and go home. Ghost Rider's marked Zaz. If he escapes, if he gets parole through some future corruption, if he hurts someone else, the spirit will deliver judgment immediately. Zaz's sentence isn't just from Castellano, it's from reality itself. He steps out of line. He burns." Batman considered that. It was insurance. Supernatural insurance that the justice system's verdict would hold. Ghost Rider wasn't leaving, wasn't returning to its home dimension. It was staying, watching, ensuring that Gotham's law meant something. "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" he asked. Constantine laughed bitterly. "That's the question, innit? Having the spirit of vengeance as backup ensures guilty people face consequences, but it also means living under constant cosmic judgment. Every criminal in Gotham is now being watched by something that can see their sins. That changes the game. Changes it how? Criminals who might have operated in moral gray areas will think twice. But vigilantes like you? Also being judged. Heroes who sometimes cross lines, who make compromises, who do necessary evils, all being measured against absolute moral standards. Ghost Rider doesn't care about context, about impossible choices, about needs of the many versus needs of the few. It sees sin and delivers vengeance. Period. The implication was clear. Batman's own actions, the times he'd bent laws, used fear as a weapon, made choices that haunted him, were all being weighed by the spirit. If he crossed certain lines, if he failed too completely, Ghost Rider might judge him as guilty as the criminals he fought. "I can live with that," Batman said. "Accountability isn't a burden, it's a responsibility." "Easy to say now, mate. Wait until you're in the field making split-second decisions, and you feel those flames watching, judging, waiting for you to slip up. See how easy accountability feels then." Batman didn't respond. Because Constantine was right. Having Ghost Rider as witness to every action, every choice, every moral compromise would change how he operated. Make him more careful, more certain, more like the spirit itself. An absolute in judgment, unwilling to compromise? No. He'd find balance. He had to. That night, Batman returned to Crime Alley one final time. Ghost Rider waited at the Wayne Memorial, flames burning steady and low. "Your judge delivered justice," the spirit said without preamble. "Sauce will die in prison. His victims are avenged. The system functioned." "This time," Batman said. "What about next time?" "Next time, I will watch. I will wait. I will give your system the opportunity to deliver justice before I deliver judgment. But I will not wait forever. And I will not accept failure indefinitely." "Fair enough." Batman studied the spirit, flames reflecting in his cowl's white lenses. "Why are you still here? Sosh is sentenced. Your purpose is fulfilled. Why not return to your home dimension?" Ghost Rider's flames flickered, and for a moment, Batman saw something like regret in those burning eye sockets. "Because Sarah Jennings's scream called me across realities. Her cry for justice opened a door between dimensions that cannot be easily closed. I am bound here now, not trapped, but connected. This world's suffering resonates with the spirit of vengeance. Your city screams with sin loud enough to pierce dimensional barriers. Gotham has always screamed. Yes, but now that scream has an answer. The guilty will know that judgment exists beyond mortal law. That vengeance, when justice fails, is not just possible, but inevitable." The spirit's voice carried weight of cosmic inevitability. "I am not your enemy, Dark Knight. I am your insurance policy. I am the consequence that ensures your justice system functions. See, because failure means hellfire." Batman understood. Ghost Rider's presence was both blessing and curse. motivating the system to work through fear of supernatural consequences, but also creating pressure that could break rather than strengthen. What happens if Gotham's corruption proves too deep, he asked. If the system fails repeatedly, if judges take bribes, juries acquit the guilty, criminals walk free, then I will become what you fear most, judge, jury, and executioner for an entire city. I will deliver the justice your system cannot, and Gotham will burn with the flames of cosmic vengeance until only the innocent remain. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Ghost Rider wasn't promising to help Gotham. The Spirit was promising to replace its justice system if that system failed too completely. To become the law, or absolute and terrifying. I won't let that happen, Batman said. Then ensure your system works, ensure justice is delivered, ensure the guilty face consequences. Ghost Rider's flames built higher, brighter, burning with the intensity of stars. Because I am watching, always watching. And the moment your justice fails, truly, completely fails, vengeance will rise from shadows and deliver what mercy denied. The Spirit vanished in a burst of hellfire, leaving only scorch marks on concrete and the lingering smell of brimstone. Batman stood alone in Crime Alley, the weight of Ghost Rider's words settling over him like lead. He'd won this battle, saved Saz from execution, proven the system could work, delivered justice for 7 murdered children. But the war was far from over. Gotham would continue producing monsters, or the system would continue struggling under corruption. Cases would be lost, criminals would walk free, victims would cry out for justice that mortal law couldn't deliver. And Ghost Rider would be watching, waiting, judging whether Batman's way deserved to exist or whether the flames of vengeance should consume it entirely. He thought of Sarah Jennings, 12 years old, clawing at a locked door while smoke filled her lungs. Thought of her final moments, her terror, her desperate hope that someone, anyone, would save her. That hope had been answered too late by mortal law, but it had been answered across dimensional barriers by the spirit of vengeance, drawn by a scream so pure, so absolute in its demand for justice, that reality itself had bent to provide an answer. That was the power of a victim's cry, on the power that had brought Ghost Rider to Gotham. The power that would keep the Spirit here, watching over every case, every trial, every moment when justice hung in the balance. Batman couldn't decide if that made him feel safer or more terrified. Probably both. He activated his grapnel, ascending to Gotham's rooftops where the city spread before him like a living organism, breathing sin and suffering, corruption and courage, darkness, and the small lights that refused to be extinguished. His city, his responsibility, his burden. Now shared with a cosmic force that valued absolute justice over human mercy, vengeance over redemption, finality over hope. The partnership would either save Gotham or destroy it. Batman didn't know which outcome was more likely. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Every choice he made from this moment forward would be weighed against standards higher than any he'd faced before. Every criminal he let live would be marked by Ghost Rider's flames. Every victim denied justice would cry out across dimensions. Every failure of Gotham's system would bring the Spirit closer to replacing it entirely. The pressure was immense. The stakes were cosmic. The margin for error had vanished entirely. But that was fine. Batman had never operated with margin for error anyway. He disappeared into the shadows, cape blending with the darkness, a symbol of hope in a city drowning in despair. Behind him, invisible to normal eyes but burning bright to those with awareness, Ghost Rider's flames watched from every shadow, every alley, or every space where the guilty thought they were safe. Gotham had always been a city of darkness. Now that darkness was watched by hellfire itself. And somewhere between Batman's hope and Ghost Rider's judgment, justice, imperfect, human, necessary justice, would either prove itself worthy or be consumed by the flames of absolute vengeance. The city would decide. The guilty would face consequences. And the spirit of vengeance would ensure that Sarah Jennings' scream, the cry that had pierced dimensions and summoned judgment from beyond reality, would be answered. Not just for her, but for every victim whose suffering demanded more than mortal law could provide. Victor Sass died in Blackgate Penitentiary 11 years later, alone in administrative segregation, his body failing from decades of guilt that no amount of denial could erase. On the day he died, Ghost Rider manifested in his cell, flames burning cold, eye sockets blazing with the light of final judgment. The penance stare took him in his last moments, forcing Sass to experience every second of suffering he'd inflicted. Sarah Jennings' terror, Marcus Chen's pain, 6 other children's final moments of agony, the firefighters who died trying to save them. Every life destroyed by his greed, reflected back through hellfire that had waited patiently for mortal justice to conclude. When Sass's soul finally departed, it went not to whatever afterlife he'd imagined, but to judgment that transcended dimensions. The spirit of vengeance had allowed human law its chance. Now, cosmic consequences claimed what mortal courts could only imprison. Batman heard about it through Oracle, guards finding Sass's body with burned eye sockets, the smell of brimstone saturating his cell, scorch marks on walls that had witnessed the spirit's final judgment. No investigation was launched. In Gotham, some mysteries were better left unexplored. The case became legend, the trial where Gotham's justice system actually worked, where a jury convicted despite pressure and corruption, where a judge delivered sentences that matched crimes. It was used in law schools as an example of the system functioning. It was cited by reformers as proof that accountability was possible even in America's most corrupt city. But those with eyes to see knew the truth. The system had worked because failure meant something worse than acquittal, or it had functioned because supernatural consequences ensured mortal law had meaning. Ghost Rider remained in Gotham, a presence felt in every shadow, every alley where the guilty preyed on the innocent. The spirit didn't intervene often. Batman's way was given respect. Constantine's magic was monitored but not prevented. The Justice League Dark operated without interference. But when justice failed, when juries were bribed, when judges were corrupted, when guilty men walked free, Ghost Rider delivered the judgment the system could not. It made Gotham's criminals more cautious, made the corrupt think twice, made monsters question whether their crimes were worth eternal damnation. It also made heroes more careful. Batman operated knowing every choice was witnessed by absolute moral judgment. A Constantine negotiated his demon deals with awareness that the spirit watched and disapproved. Even the Justice League, when operating in Gotham, felt the weight of cosmic scrutiny. The balance was fragile. Batman's hope and Ghost Rider's vengeance existed in constant tension, one believing in redemption, the other in eternal consequences. One defending the system despite its flaws, the other waiting for that system to fail so judgment could replace it. Sarah Jennings' grave received visitors every year on the anniversary of her death. Her mother placing flowers, her father standing in silent grief, Ada Rebecca Chen, who'd built her career on that conviction. And sometimes, in the quiet hours between midnight and dawn, a flaming skull on a motorcycle would appear, standing vigil over the grave of the girl whose scream had summoned vengeance across dimensions. The spirit never spoke during these visits, just stood witness, flames burning low, ensuring Sarah's sacrifice, her suffering, her death, her cry for justice, was remembered. Because that was what the spirit of vengeance did. It remembered. It witnessed. It ensured the guilty faced consequences and the innocent were not forgotten. And in Gotham, where darkness reigned and hope struggled to survive, that memory, that promise of cosmic accountability, was sometimes the only thing keeping the shadows at bay. Batman continued his crusade, defending his city with methods that valued life over vengeance, redemption over damnation, hope over despair. Ghost Rider watched, judged, and waited. A supernatural insurance policy ensuring that when Batman's way succeeded, it was celebrated, and when it failed, Hellfire would deliver what mercy could not. The partnership would never be comfortable, would always exist in tension. But it worked, after a fashion, the way all Gotham's heroes worked, imperfectly, dangerously, balanced on the knife's edge between salvation and damnation. Two symbols watched over the city, one of hope, one of vengeance. And between them, in the spaces where justice struggled to exist, Gotham found something it had rarely known: accountability that transcended corruption, consequences that money couldn't buy, judgment that the guilty could never escape. Hope shines brightest in the darkest night, but sometimes that light comes from hellfire. Hope shines brightest in the darkest night. More stories await.